right.
That's how I do it with Mangler.
All right. So, video's up. Today I'm joined by Kyle, and we'll be reacting to How Strong is Solid Snake by Crisis, a other prominent. Well, I guess I'm not prominent, so a prominent power scaler on the scene. Let us begin.
This year,
I
nearly
wonder what
40
it's like,
years
you know.
ago, in 1987, among a sea of action shooters, a new style of gameplay would be devised by visionary game director Hideo Kojima. Blending elements from mystery novels, spy thrillers, and war films, Metal Gear would be born. This founding father of the stealth action genre would need a likewise revolutionary kind of protagonist to tell these tales of super spies and world-ending weapons. One with far more complex motivations and capabilities compared to the competition. This called for a master of warfare, a tactical genius, the ultimate.
So I'm actually gonna pause there for a minute.
That's
You
fucking
actually,
cursed.
well, are those his eyes?
That's fucking cursed.
Oh, I hope that can be the thumbnail. Oh, that's great. So I was actually gonna ask you because you actually played the original two Metal Gear games. Was Snake's character all that complex in those games, or would you disagree with that position? Because Contra had lore
Fucking
too.
hell, not like barely even a character.
Oh Jesus, he's like looking at my soul. I can see it on the right panel. No, yeah, because I was gonna say like Solid Snake has definitely become a more well-defined character as time went on, but
Snake Snake didn't get a character until Metal Gear Solid, not the original Metal Gears.
yeah, I was gonna say like let's be honest here and just admit that the writing back then for a lot of games wasn't quite what it is today. You know, let's just be honest about
It was
that.
basically, let's do a basic setup for the plot and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
It wasn't really much of a character motivation.
Yeah, especially because you don't even find out so
It,
many things until later.
shit only becomes deep once you've stepped back and you've looked at the timeline in its full extent.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. The original Metal Gear. He's right about the original Metal Gear games doing that, but yeah, just Snake wasn't that. He wasn't the character he ends up becoming later on, so to speak.
Spy, hunter, marksman, and martial artist. Repurposing and remixing traits from some of cinema's greatest heroes all led to the creation of Solid Snake. This single game, Metal Gear, would blossom into one of gaming's most iconic franchises, then turning to the superhuman talents often showcased throughout comic books, anime, and manga, firmly placing Snake beside the medium's most mythical icons. Yet, when it comes to the god-slaying Kratos, or even the master of karate Ryu from Street Fighter, as well as many other such legends, there exists a firmly established understanding of their otherworldly power.
It does. We are in 2025. There is no fucking reason you should be calling him Ryu anymore. It is not 2005. It is not 1990. It's Ryu. It's
So,
always been Ryu. Pronounce it properly.
I had that thought in my head of like, is Ryu wrong or is it like a different way to pronounce Ryu? Because I believe the official dub calls him Ryu.
So does the Japanese. It's never Ryu.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I felt that was wrong too. I just didn't want to say anything in case
Ryu has
maybe it's a
always
different
been how
pronunciation.
the Americans used to pronounce it. Because you guys have a fucked up way of pronouncing shit. Because
That's what.
you
That's wild.
you isolate the first letter and then you combine the second letters.
How disrespectful! I won't tolerate such slander from an Australian. But all right, let's continue.
Or expert combat skills. However, by comparison, I believe there to be a considerable deficit when it comes to the masses' grasp of Snake's strength, speed, and combat aptitude. So, as per usual,
So I'm also gonna just say for the record that that was the case for all of those characters for the longest time. Video games did not get the proper rep they deserved until, realistically speaking, 4 to 5 years ago is when it happened. God, I'm so old in this fucking
have
game.
spent
Let's be
years
generous and let's say the end of the 2010s.
Sure. Let's say that. But like, video game characters have always had a bad rap in power scaling
Just
and
mining
just understanding of what they
every
can do.
available resource from the games
I mean, we
themselves.
kind of figured that out when, you know, going through DOA and Ninja Gaiden, two very criminally underrated like series in terms of verses.
Yeah, it's kind of funny he did put Ninja Gaiden in a little montage, but all right.
Strategy guides, art books, official websites, interviews, magazines, all from across the world to prove that the legendary mercenary deserves to be spoken of in the same breath as most, if not all, of fiction's mightiest super soldiers.
Okay, hold on a minute. Like even if we give Snake like, and I'm assuming like light speed and stuff of that nature, are we really saying he's, you know, up there with like the big dogs of that area? Are we gonna talk about Kratos versus Snake at the end of this?
No, because he's saying like super soldiers. So what's his competition? Like fucking Captain America and what, Kamen Rider?
I mean, I guess you got Master Chief and like maybe would you consider Doom Guy a super soldier or no?
Yeah, I guess if you squint and tilt your head.
Listen, I'm just saying, either that terminology is super broad or super niche. That's all I'm saying.
My name is Cecilia.
And there's a fucking ad. I should really get.
Hello, Cecilia. Get off my screen.
And if you enjoy content and discussions like this one, you can become a channel member for as little as $1 a month to gain access to my private Discord server. It's an active and growing community of video game and comic book fans which help to support my channel. Thank you, and please enjoy the video. While the series first began with
is that I refuse to pay money to get into a fucking Discord server.
a rookie Solid Snake infiltrating the military nation.
If it works for him, good for him. That's not a slide on him. That's just a personal thing that I stand on just in general.
I can definitely understand why though, especially because like I had a server public for a while and it caused a lot of headache if it's not curated to some extent. So I can definitely understand why you would lock a server behind it. But hey, if it works for him, good for him.
Heaven, much like Star Wars, the backstory of the saga was thereafter thoroughly fleshed out via prequels, starring Snake's mentor, genetic template, and father, known as Big Boss. By the time Snake hits his prime as a warrior, he would surely surpass his predecessor, as I will thoroughly showcase later on, but for now, it is imperative that we as well document the feats and
You
achievements
not
of
say
Big Boss.
the strongest version of him is fucking 4.
Alright, so when 4 becomes the strongest version.
4 is a great movie, but that is not the strongest Snake. That's fucking 2.
Nope.
As they will prove foundational towards Snake's skills and abilities. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, set in 1964, depicts Naked Snake, a pro with every military weapon and a master of close quarters.
Specializes in covert operations as a seasoned combat veteran, proficient in all types of military equipment and weaponry. Okay.
Combat, performing a grueling one-man infiltration mission against multiple factions of the best soldiers up to that point. To put this into perspective, it's probably not out of the question for even some of the random fodder, like the GRU operatives or Ocelot unit, to honestly body many of your favorite vigilantes or super assassins via skill alone. The Russian GRU guards at the very start were cream of the crop in the KG.
Okay, bold. Let's see what he has to say. First time he encounters upon infiltrating the Soviet Union or to rescue Sokolov. They face many hardships at the hands of this Fox operative, who would later go on to be named Big Boss, and are even taken out by their own comrade Ocelot. But that is more of a testament to the abilities of their opponents, as they are elite soldiers in their own right. Okay, that's not really...
B stated to have prepared for any scenario with second to none training with the utmost weapon.
Okay, so... Hold on.
The KGB stated to have prepared...
Spetsnaz troops undergo rigorous training in all types of special ops, from assassination, demolition, and intelligence gathering. Are they called Spetsnaz troops?
The Russian GRU guards at the very start were cream of the...
Okay, so I guess...
Sounds right.
I mean... Because the guys wearing the berets, I believe, are the Ocelot unit. So I'm going to assume he's just correct here. They just don't call them Spetsnaz for whatever reason.
Prop in the KGB stated to have prepared for...
The KGB is, yeah, there it is anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it says Spetsnaz. It's just that, like, well, the Spetsnaz, I believe, are the name of the unit. It's just
with second to none training.
That Volgan's loaded, man. His unit is one of the best equipped in the entire Soviet Union, if not the best.
With the utmost weaponry. The young Revolver Ocelot being the best among them. second to none training with the utmost weaponry. The young Revolver Ocelot being
The commander Ocelot unit that served the Red Russian colonel was well known for his amazing learning and adaptive capabilities, able to employ advanced combat skills within mere hours of seeing them in action. The Ocelot commander was unmatched in his unit.
best among them, capable of easily team-wiping an entire squad of peak Russian soldiers, tasked with protecting the highest level diplomats. Naked Snake then totally dominates Ocelot in hand-to-hand, and even gets the better of him in mid-range shootout, and reads him like an open book simply by perceiving his slight wrist movements. This is all child's
Would you say the third fight with Ocelot, or the third encounter, is a win for Snake? Because doesn't the fight end before the fight actually, like, has a conclusion? Because I believe the pain interrupts that fight.
Does he? Because isn't the third fight the one when you're trying to escape
No,
after killing the boss?
No. But the image he's using
Shootout.
is of Ocelot versus Snake in the canyon.
and reads him like an open book simply
Yeah,
by
no.
perceiving his slight wrist movements. This is all child's play
because
to Naked.
You fight him first there, and then you fight him just before you fight the pain.
Yeah, because the pain interrupts the fight. So, I mean, I guess if you want to say Snake beat him, I mean, I guess by surviving, he technically won.
It's Snake, who by contrast states to only ever implement a technique
Like noted that Adam had no intention of killing Snake.
Yeah, because at the bare minimum, from what we've seen in MGS3, Ocelot at bare minimum is a better marksman than Snake is. Like, I mean, if you want to say Snake dominates in hand-to-hand combat, yeah, sure, 100%. I see no reason. Well, actually, the end of the game kind of
I mean, like,
differ.
depending on what statements he's willing to give Naked Snake here, this would also help, like, Skullface.
No. Well, we're not going to mention Skullface, I guarantee you. Let's see if Skullface ever gets mentioned here.
if he's truly mastered it, unlike Ocelot. This means that, for the most part, whatever action or skill employed by Big Boss or Solid Snake hereafter are done so with authoritative perfection. Following this, Naked Snake is easily dealt with and tossed aside by his own master, the Boss, seemingly having just defected to the Russian cause. After having his arm broken, being tossed off a bridge, and exposed to the outskirts of a nuclear blast, Snake enjoys less than a week at a hospital before being sent back into Russian territory, now tasked with defeating the boss, her unit, and destroying the super weapon which she'd helped create. Naturally, Snake did not have medical clearance to pursue these goals, so remember that
Don't forget that you were like that until just yesterday. In fact, you were.
he's very much far worse for wear, as I detail the rest of Operation Snake Eater. The bulk of his adversaries, aside from whom I already
so you
mentioned,
can hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I wanted to say before, because you said like how Snake was doing everything by perfection. You can't really say he was doing everything by perfection when he had somebody who was an actual perfectionist going behind him and cleaning up every one of his messes.
Yeah, but so he's just in this particular case, he's just extrapolating on the earlier statement that Snake is like proficient and a master of CQC. So he's just using the statement from Snake to support that all of his moves at bare minimum he's mastered. I suspect what he's also trying to say is that any weapon and any object that Snake picks up, he would be a master in. Since I guess that's also what he's trying to go for. Since Snake claims he doesn't use any tactics he hasn't mastered.
be the Cobras. These are essentially the true greatest warriors,
To see the best soldiers of the world.
all trained by the boss herself, each wielding bizarre X-Men type superpowers. The official Chinese strategy guide even says this unit was inspired by the biblical horsemen of the apocalypse. That's how intense the opposition to Snake is this time around. The most impressive among them, who Snake manages to defeat while again injured and some measure of exhausted, are the Fear, an unparalleled master of jungle traps and crossbows. The MGS3 Master Book refers to these talents as superhuman, which is a running theme in the series. He can also wall crawl like Spider-Man, and wields stealth camouflage tech, and despite all of that, Big Boss was able to take him out in his ideal battlefield. He later combats the End, the over 100-year-old creator of sniping, who uses his photosynthetic connection to the forest to offset his age and amplify his situational awareness. Metal Gear Solid 3 Existence, which essentially acts as the true story of the game, serving as a movie-esque telling of the events for those who don't actually want to play it, depicts Snake as totally avoiding all of the End's fire, managing to outsnipe him by a hair. Peace Walker, a sequel to this game, game has Big Boss saying it took him around an hour to beat the end, which is still saying a lot considering he wasn't at his best and all of the end's advantages on paper. While the Sorrow doesn't present as immediate a threat as he is a ghost by the time Snake encounters him, his abilities while he was alive consisted of using extrasensory perception to read the minds of dead soldiers to channel their memories and skills. Despite that, the boss is currently stated to be the best soldier of all time, not the Sorrow, which speaks to her talents as she simply trains and masters techniques conventionally, rather than via the use of superpowers. Speaking of ghosts, Big Boss and Snake can see them, and in a later title, the former can actually grab and combat spirits, which is a very unique ability. Volgin, while not technically being a Cobra, was listed as a boxing champion in official
Male 50s, standard English. He's 50? Damn. He has the Colonel.
What game was that where you could grab ghosts?
That was Peace Walker, I believe. His codename is Thunderbolt, real name Volgin. He plays MGS3 villain role. He's a giant over 6'7" tall. He is kind of a torture freak, inheriting a fortune from the Assembly. He builds an enormous base in Glasnograd, bringing in the boss's group and the Brezhnev military faction. He seeks ultimate political power, a man of broad taste. He keeps two lovers, one of them Lieutenant Rykov, the other Eve. He is the strategic operations commander of the enemy. He is an ex-boxing champion. That is... Okay.
Development documents, and more
what's the source?
Importantly, he can channel up to 10 million volts of electricity to either fire lightning blasts or enhance his strikes. Converting this amount of energy into more conventional terms, it's been calculated that Vulcan can harness and output over 98 billion joules, or roughly that of 24 tons of TNT. This basically means that Vulcan's blast, or as if a bomb strong enough to vaporize an entire city block, was condensed and harnessed through his attacks. And then, again, Snake, barely out of the hospital after beating multiple members of history's deadliest unit, is yet again beaten down by the boss, and then survives numerous city block busting lightning blasts. This scene is where Snake loses an eye, which wouldn't be the first time we've seen this kind of disparity between the durability of, say, someone's muscles and bones versus an eyeball. This is well observed in superhero media as an example. Of course, it could also indicate how much this torture has compounded, which makes Snake's later showings even more remarkable. Snake then sneaks out of and escapes a highly fortified research facility described as impregnable. And I hate to say it again, but after being tortured and losing an eye, he is beyond a shadow of a doubt heavily fatigued. And
I know it's supposed to be a hype statement saying that it's an impregnable fortress, but whenever something is called impregnable in fiction, take it with a very, very big grain of salt. It just means very fucking hard.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what he's going for. I doubt he's actually saying that. No,
I understand that, but there are going to be people who read that and they're going to take that to its highest interpretation.
Skullface laughs as he's the second guy who breaks into the exact same facility.
if you don't think that Snake genuinely scales to Volgin's lightning, Existence depicts him withstanding multiple blasts before outsmarting and slamming Volgin into the ground so hard he coughs up blood. He also dodges these attacks at point-blank range, as well as various streams of assault rifle fire throughout his mission. Seeing how these attacks are stated to be lightning blasts outright, with his mere presence generating thunderclouds and the like, it's fair.
I mean, I would just say if anyone really has trouble with him scaling to the lightning, I mean, Ocelot does it, and you would just scale Snake to Ocelot.
Fair to say Snake
you wouldn't even need to do that
genuinely
because in the very next game there's like light speed feats anyway. No, actually, I'm trying to think when in the timeline the light speed feats actually start happening. It would be Peace Walker, wouldn't it? Or would it be the portable game?
I think Portable, but because Portable is the next one in the timeline. Yeah, Portable's next. We'll see what.
And dodge attacks moving at nearly 1,300 times the speed of sound. Volgin does get a second wind and pilots the super tank called the Shagohod.
It's not different to me when it comes to this. But if people really have like a massive stick up their ass about like, oh, this person dodged electricity. Yeah, but was it natural? Fuck off. It's electricity. He dodged it. Don't do this. Was it natural fucking thing with me?
No, yeah, I agree.
Volgin also apparently transcends time.
His veins coursing with excitement as he prepares to fight to the death. Volgin's body erupts into flames, burning away his standard military uniform to reveal a crimson-colored battlesuit. This literal man on fire stands before Snake, his full might on display, as if it had transcended both time and circumstance. Okay.
Be very, very careful, Crisis, with how you word this.
Okay, hang on. Let's see what the essay is completely. Because I mean, like,
According to Snake,
Go back
similarly
like 10
to Shadow,
seconds.
get a second wind and pilots the super tank called the Shagohod, which Snake similarly destroys. Volgin also apparently transcends time, according to the remake, so easy dub. This leads him into his one.
okay, I'm assuming he's just joking with that one because he does laugh about it. But that all that statement is really saying is that despite him being his old age and everything, he's still like at his peak, which most people by the time they're 50 are not at their peak anymore.
On-one battle with the boss, his own mentor. Many people are under the false assumption that the boss held back against her pupil due to the fact that her secret mission on behalf of the US was in fact to die at Snake's hands to save America from Russian ire. However, multiple guides refute.
Naked Snake has one last challenge to face before his mission can end. He must defeat his mentor, the woman that trained him to be the warrior he is and in many ways was a mother to him. The boss tells him of her life and of the sacrifices she as a soldier had to make. Naked Snake wins the fight with no quarter asked nor given.
The boss was telling the truth in her.
The boss tells Snake about her connection to philosophers. They then enter into a final battle among a field of flowers next to the lake. Defeated, the boss entrusts her beloved gun.
Final moments. She wanted this climactic battle to have meaning, and it would be Naked Snake's duty to assume her mantle. In fact, in the 94th issue of PlayStation Magazine, Kojima stated he designed this battle in such a way to showcase Snake surpassing the boss in CQC abilities after a suggestion from the series' character designer and art director, Yoji Shinkawa. It can't be denied that without his injuries, this fight would be even more one-sided. However, at the same time, Snake has been improving over the course of his mission. This is due to his bottomless spiritual power.
I had to sleep in, taking a hot shower, and drinking coffee and immediately regain my energy. I wanted to express that kind of hard-boiled, bottomless spiritual power to the game. In this MGS3, if the main character Snake is attacked, he will be injured. Ammunition will remain in his body or he will break. It will heal over time after eating, but he will heal the gunshot wound. You can also sew or remove ammunition from your body and heal. The wounds will remain on your whole body, and if you don't treat them, they will be full of wounds. Alright.
In the words of Kojima, and his increasing skills born through combat offsetting his injuries, meaning that after Snake Eater, as long as he's uninjured, he's simply on a whole other level compared to every threat thus far detailed. A fun fact is the flowers in their battle arena here are very irritating in real life, so either it was affecting both combatants or they're just so tough it really didn't matter. After the Gru, Ocelot and his unit, the Cobras, Volgin, the Shagohod, and finally the boss, Naked Snake ascends to the legendary status of a Big Boss. This makes it clear that he is now the greatest soldier ever in this era. The end was the forefather of an entire archetype of combat, and the boss is stated to have superhuman levels of perfection with immeasurable knowledge.
She formed the Cobras unit, who fought in the Second World War and made a crucial contribution to the success of the Allied forces. Later, this war undertook operations for several different Secret Service and Special Forces outfits in the Western Hemisphere. During her time at the SAS, the boss founded the 22nd Regiment Major Zero. The boss spent many years as Snake's mentor and instructor. With his help, she developed a fighting technique known as CQC. During the Virtuos mission, she acts as his mission consultant, sharing her inestimable knowledge of weapons and combat techniques via radio. Snake can hope for a better advisor. Universally revered, the boss is regarded as the mother of the modern special forces. Her abilities are honed to virtually superhuman levels of perfection. She is a warrior who has succeeded in each and every one of her countless missions. Okay, but what the fuck does that mean? Like, in terms of, like, superhuman levels of perfection?
She's really skilled and good at her job, that's it.
Of weapons and martial skills. This would, by definition, grant her a mastery of every fighting style, including CQC, a combat form exclusive to Metal Gear.
I mean, she made it, so I would assume she's a master of it.
Developed by Snake and the boss during this world's 1950s. As expressed by Kojima, as well as the MGS military advisor, CQC was based on the most cutting-edge techniques at the time of the game's development, meaning that Snake and the boss developed a secret elite martial art combining strikes, kicks, locks, chokes, disarm, throws, knives, and handguns a half-century ahead of the curve. This is supported as actual modern-day martial artists have certified the validity of CQC, even based on games set decades into the past. The MGS military file claims that CQC actually encompasses nearly limitless forms of expression, making it the ideal martial art for the series' brand of stealth missions, according to Konami Magazine Volume 31. Peace Walker states that CQC moves are twice as effective as similar ones of other fighting styles, and it even attacks an enemy's morale directly. This is
Hold on, what?
similar ones of other fighting styles, and it even attacks an enemy's morale.
Close quarters combat refers to actions that deal damage to the target's morale through unarmed strikes or attacks using the weapon itself. Various attack methods are available. Okay, so I guess he's arguing for emotional manipulation based on CQC. Okay, interesting.
Directly. This is even true for marksmanship, with Ocelot performing handgun technique.
Ocelot's technique is called the chamber fill shooting, manually filling the first bullet and shooting. This is the newest technique to ensure the filling of the chamber with the first shot. This is where jammed. Afterwards, you arch your elbow during shooting to absorb the recoil. It looks like an overaction, but really is a high-level technique. However, blowing the gun after shooting is Ocelot's personal habit.
That were deemed new at the time of MGS3's release. Speaking of Ocelot, he's actually posed as Naked Snake's true rival and final test during Snake Eater. Starting out as an elite, but relatively novice compared to Big Boss, he's stated and shown to be rapidly adapting over the course of this single game. He goes from being embarrassed by Naked Snake, who himself is yet to improve massively as the boss notes by their final battle, to perfecting his own style of seeking.
Let's see here. The techniques learned from a trader. Meanwhile, during battles with Naked Snake, Ocelot learned CQC by observation. He perfects his own personal style of CQC.
You see, both through sheer observation and amid combat against Big Boss. This positions both Big Boss and Ocelot as combat prodigies, with the latter being the son of the boss and the sorrow. Keep that in mind. Perhaps more interesting than this, the art of Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4 notes the boss as a master of Qi Gong, an ancient concept rooted in Chinese mysticism, with its most basic of attributes being enhancing one's speed, strength, and senses through the harnessing of one's life energy, with this being the
Question. How long is he going to waff on? Okay, they're good at fighting, move on.
Nope, well, we gotta really hammer it home, Kyle. Come on now.
No, seriously, this video is an hour and a half, like, come on.
Well, I think we're close to the end of Snake Eater.
This could very well be the in-universe explanation for the super soldier level abilities seen in the series. Nearly every relevant character boasts statements placing them beyond human limitations, contrary to maybe Snake's
but there's
perception
nothing to
as
say.
like Call of Duty pro tag or a Jason Bourne, John Wick level character.
I mean,
Kojima notes how because it's
I will say at the time, at this moment, he is doing a very good job with providing scans and everything, which is a little uncommon from the other videos we reacted to, or at least I've reacted to a Mangler.
No, it's fine. I understand that. He's doing a good job with scans. The problem is that, like, you don't need to stretch this out to, like, 15 minutes. This could have just been a one-and-done thing where you put, like, a handful of scans and moved on to something else.
I'm very sure the reason he's doing this is because he doesn't want to have to make another one. So he's providing all the scans so no one can be like, oh, well, you know, it's not enough. Then the sequel had to be...
I understand that, but if you have, like, more than one, that should usually, like, shut people up, or if anything, from what I've heard, just show some of the stuff in the novels, because I'm sure he's going to bring up the novels.
I don't know.
Video game, these feats don't really warrant an explanation, but maybe Qi Gong could serve as one regardless. Following these events, Big Boss would take part in scores of regional and ethnic warfare, his skills improving as he both maintained his physique and honing the talents of other operatives, with combat being stated to be the supreme form of training in the series. The first large-scale conflict Big Boss would take part in is the San Geronimo incident, set 6 years after the events of Snake Eater and depicting Big Boss as curtailing the efforts of a splinter faction of his own former unit known as Fox. This game's canonicity has been nitpicked by misguided pedants for years. Insofar as the abilities of Solid Snake, this game admittedly serves as a little more than supporting evidence, so take it or leave it. Being intellectually honest, scenes from Portable Ops are present in the irrefutably canon Metal Gear Solid 4, and it's been featured on multiple official timelines even after Phantom Pain's.
Look, I can understand being annoyed with this by other people, because, you know, canonicity with spin-offs always raises, like, eyebrows. But the game was very clearly meant to be a story set within the Metal Gear universe. Like, the story perfectly fits with Big Boss. I think it even has Colonel from the main series, meeting Big Boss. Yeah, no, there's no reason to argue Portable Ops isn't canon. The story fits just fine.
Released the most recent canon game, with the Master Collection's guide plainly saying it's connected to the saga. Some people sometimes read into and misinterpret a single impromptu interview.
What was it? If we're talking about details, there's quite a bit more DVDs for the Metal Gear universe. So, how do I put this? In terms of the overall storyline, it's part of the saga, but in terms of the small details, it would appear to be a little off from the main story. how to say this, rather than saying whether it's main story or not, it's more like within me, things are expressed as a division between those who Hideo Kojima games that I directed or designed. Those things where I was producer.
Statement where Kojima basically offers a non-answer to the subject, but they then ignore the fact that in both the official MGS Japanese novels, multiple references to portable ops are made. The author, who later co-wrote Kojima's next series, Death Stranding, went as far as to claim Kojima was an editor or even co-writer of these books, while also being painstakingly mulled over by the entire Kojima Productions scenario team. Both during his time at Konami and even after being officially separated from the Metal Gear franchise, Kojima promoted these novels, told fans to read them before MGS5 released, and went as far to call them masterpieces. With that said, it's all just too much to ignore.
It's great that Kojima was part of the novels. Even if he wasn't part of the novels, as long as they were officially licensed by Konami, you would still take them.
Yeah, but you always have Puritans fucking, having issues with that. Again,
in this video, Big Boss starts this game off.
This is just someone who's been burned repeatedly by fucking other people having just really bad takes.
Before escaping and finding a now standard Fox unit sneaking suit. Already seen in MGS3, this brand of armor improves both stealth capabilities and durability, but according to Kojima in PlayStation Magazine number 112, at least this variation of the suit amplifies CQC as well. This has very interesting implications for the series moving forward, as sneaking suit tech constantly evolves between games, and it leads me to believe that even someone's martial arts skills could be lessened depending on if they're wearing one or not. With this now in hand, Snake manages to best a new assortment of peak soldiers and mutant adversaries. This time around, much of the random fodder are former Fox soldiers, which per Big Boss's training with the unit would constitute the combined skills of the British Special Air Service and the elite US Army Green Berets. Their talents would be such that a normal Green Beret squad stood no match. Beyond this, Snake defeats one of his former comrades, the Mr. Freeze-esque Python. Snake manages to outmaneuver this deadliest Fox soldier, despite his liquid nitrogen supersuit making CQC impossible, showcasing the depth at which Big Boss can adapt. There's also Null, or later known as Gray Fox, already conditioned to be the perfect soldier with skills akin to precognition. A superhuman as early as this, Big Boss and
why did that one disappear so fast? Alright.
I didn't know we could put scans up that fast and just gloss over it. I'm gonna do that next time.
Well, hang on.
You wanna read the scan? You fucking pause the video.
A superhuman as early.
Okay, so I want to be clear. The scan moves so fast that even pausing it, it is still in motion. Resuming
which means what? He put it up there for like 0.3 seconds.
Probably like 0.5. Snake found both Alicia and Ursula inside the facility. The girls were twin sisters, both raised in the lab since birth and currently working under Gene's command. The research being conducted at the lab was on the perfect soldier. The experiment involved erasing all memory and emotion to turn a person into a war machine, a soldier with superhuman capabilities. All right, I can see why it was kind of glossed over.
This, Big Boss narrowly defeats.
Null unleashes inhuman attacks, and Snake barely holds his own, but then something changes in Null's behavior. Frustrated by his inability to finish off Snake, his mental state begins to crumble. The tide seems to be turning in Snake's favor, but just then Cunningham appears
this former child soldier. Most impressively is Gene, someone genetically engineered to surpass the original boss at every level. Sporting a deadlier variety of enhanced CQC, mastery of mental powers, including mind reading and psychic attacks, on the scale of a small army, as well as teleportation. Big Boss resists all of this, powers of a small army as well as teleport.
The ability to teleport. Alright.
Big Boss resists all of this, powers through, and manages to best someone actually better than the boss in all facets. Peace Walker would follow next.
Is that really impressive though, when you're basically arguing that a peak condition MGS3 Snake would have beat the shit out of the boss relatively easily? I don't know how impressive it is that he beat someone who was superior to her if he was already vastly superior by the end of MGS3 by your position. It's not a big deal, just a little
set 4 years later, and to be honest, this game doesn't do much to bolster Snake's talents. He easily deals with squads of CIA paramilitary, but he mostly proves himself against giant mechs yet again. He does manage to halt a stomp from both the massive Cocoon, as well as Metal Gear Zeke and Peace Walker itself. Some measure of fans might assume these displays to be comedic or somehow non-canonical, but I think that has to do with the misconception that these warriors are intended to be down.
Right feats. And again, like, if you're familiar with this channel, I've made my stance on this quite clear. I don't care if it seems absurd or whatever. I don't take outliers as a fucking argument, because outliers can lead to very easy cherry picking. If somebody can do something and they don't need assistance, it's absolutely fine to be on the table.
Yes.
To Earth Rambo-esque combatants, but that simply was never the idea. Big Boss is a nuclear irradiated freak, with radiation granting certain people superpowers in portable ops, and there's always chi amplification in the mix, along with dozens of superhuman statements by various creators. The characters in the universe...
He made a claim that needs to be substantiated. He called Snake a radioactive freak.
Well, yeah, because so basically what he's saying here is, well, because he claims Snake. Well, he didn't claim. Snake survives the nuke in MGS3, so his position is that
He's nowhere near the nuke. He sees it blow up, but he's not anywhere near it.
I think technically he falls under the fallout of it because I think the wind does blow heavily afterwards.
Yeah, but that would be an assumption. You'd have to have like something concrete telling you that he's been hit by the fallout.
I mean, to be as clear as possible, this part of the video is not him actually presenting a position he's arguing for. It's just him trying to say that like if people
No, because
disagree
he's
with
presenting
this-
he's presenting the idea that Snake is as strong as he is because he fucking Bruce Bannered himself through the fucking nuke.
Well, not entirely. He's just saying that if people have issues with it, well, here are examples of nuclear or nukes giving people power.
Yeah, but that's the problem. You only have problems with that if you're making the argument first and foremost that he got his strength from the nuke.
I mean, yeah, you could just make the argument that he shouldn't even be trying to like offer an explanation and just move on because there's no explanation.
Yeah,
properly
just
given
say
for it.
that he's strong. People in Metal Gear are fucking weird.
acknowledge these feats, guides reference them. They're as legitimate as anything else.
For God's sake, we have literally the Sorrow who can communicate with the dead.
Also, unless stated specifically, most QuickTime events in a video game would be considered viable for scaling purposes.
Boss can actually lift up to 320,000 tons or more than 713 million pounds. There is some information in this game that will become very relevant later on, that being the fact that the mech Peace Walker's internal armor could withstand a nuclear war and would only be penetrated by an atom bomb per its designer. Ground Zeroes, released in 2014 and set a year after Peace Walker, shows Big Boss sneaking in and around a stand-in for Guantanamo Bay. By now, the high-ranking Agent Paz calls Big Boss an unparalleled combatant in intel.
Peace Walker.
What?
Was his argument that Snake scales to Peace Walker?
Well, I mean, his whole argument, so this video is a little
The problem-
misleading in its name. It should be how strong is Snake, not Solid Snake. Because we've only talked about Big Boss for the first 20 minutes of the video.
Well, I'm assuming because like Solid Snake can literally do everything that Big Boss can do, it's gonna wrap around to that. The problem with scaling Snake to Peace Walker is
Peace Walker?
the way he fights Peace Walker is by using, would you say bazooka or an RPG? Basically the same thing, right?
I think he just used an RPG basically.
So you'd just be arguing that RPGs in Metal Gear are way stronger than your traditional.
Yeah, you kind of have to make that claim. Especially, or I guess you could just make the argument, because I don't think you ever actually destroy Peace Walker. Yeah, actually, no, you do, yeah, and then Peace Walker reactivates.
Destroy its outer shell, so there's enough of it so you can try and remove some of its data disks.
Yeah. Alright, let's continue.
Yet by the end of this undertaking, he's put into a 9-year coma after a helicopter collision. While you might look at this and think it flies in the face of everything I've presented thus far, the scene actually fades to white before we can really see what happens. Out of the 5 people in this helicopter, only the 1 child and presumably the pilot on board perished, with Big Boss, his right-hand man Kaz, and a medic waking up who knows how long after this series of explosions. Considering his feats up until now, I honestly think it's more likely being submerged in water, or who knows how long, more likely contributed to this coma, rather than any explosive energy he'd be exposed to. Kaz himself was just fine, and while some might misremember him as having lost limbs in this crash, it was actually nearly a decade later against the superhuman Skull unit that he became an amputee. The bottom line, there are many more possible factors here, so I wouldn't view this as superseding the rest of Big Boss's displays.
Okay, so my issue, so I understand what he's trying to say, because obviously you got to try and explain everything because outliers, people don't, outliers have kind of gone out the wayside, so that's fine. But why would he be underwater that long if the explosion doesn't affect him? Because remember that you're arguing the position, and again, like I understand, you give some leeway here. These things happen in stories, but you're arguing, and you're arguing very hard for the position that MGS3 Snake was tanking city-level explosions. There's no mental gymnastics you can make that explain the coma unless the bomb just knocked him the fuck out.
Unless he
shouldn't
stays later.
Possible based on where you're saying. Which again, it's fine. There are just some times where a story is just a story. But I don't know. I don't understand this whole newfangled fucking need to make everything have to work. Sometimes you just gotta sit back and acknowledge, yeah, that was just a really stupid moment, guys. It just is what it is.
Yeah, sometimes what happens. But the problem is as well is that unless he goes back later and differentiates durability, he's scaling Snake just based off his words here to being able to harm the Peace Walker, which, by all accounts, depending on what nuke you go with, the strongest would be the Zon Bomber, which is 50 megatons. So you're arguing that Snake would be scaling at the bare minimum, large city climbing in the mountain.
You can't even say he was caught off guard because in that cutscene, he's already aware of the bomb in pause. Well, also, I'm not gonna get into that cutscene. That cutscene was weird.
Well, again, I think this is something Mangler thinks it's a waste of time. I don't. I think we should do a video at some point covering what is durability, because people put it under too much of a fucking blanket. You know what I mean?
No, yeah. I mean, at some point we should go over it. But for now, we're barely 20 minutes in, and this video's been 40 minutes.
Phantom Pain
right
will
on
star
schedule.
the aforementioned medic, being forced to play the role
I
of
don't know,
Big
maybe
Boss
we'll
while
turn
the
into a short
original
or something.
man who sold the world worked in the background. Venom Snake, as he would be called, was already an elite among Big Boss's private army before having all of Big Boss's skills and experiences pasted over his own via hypnotic suggestion. Chronologically later in the franchise, these methods were shown to actually stack the power of both former and current identities, which lines up as Venom Snake with his cyborg arm manages to best the Skulls, whom Kaz suggested he not even attempt to face. Since he was under the assumption that Venom was the original Big Boss, this would put Venom Snake's combat prowess beyond his doppelganger, which is consistent with the series lore. Phantom Pain also shows this Big Boss beyond, since he arm manages of suggestion. Chronologically later in the franchise, these methods were shown to
the power of Revolver Ocelot plus Liquid Snake. Okay.
actually stack the power of both former and current identities, which lines up as Venom Snake with the cyborg arm manages to best the Skulls, whom Kaz suggested he not even attempt to face. Since he was under the assumption that Venom was the original Big Boss, this would put Venom Snake's combat prowess beyond his doppelganger, which is consistent with the series lore. Phantom Pain also shows this Big Boss capable of countering and using swords, which ties into the statement about Naked Snake being proficient in every type of military weapon, and coupling that with the statement about him only using a technique if he's perfected it, it means he has mastered swordplay as.
Okay, so I'm gonna give a little bit of a hot take here. How do you know Snake was the one who mastered swords and not the medic? Because if we're combining both personalities, and by his position here, Venom Snake is stronger than Big Boss at this point in the timeline.
Yeah.
Oh, finally a take you can agree on with this guy. But I don't know. It's just weird why we're attributing this to Snake and not fucking just the medic.
Well, the second Big Boss would as well go on to best Quiet, both in hand-to-hand and a sniper battle, with the legendary assassin having been mutated Resident Evil style by a strain of parasites. These grant her super strength and speed, as well as a form of invisibility, leaving literally no trace, not even breathing, a heartbeat, eating, excreting, body temperature, or sweat. Yet, Venom was able to track down and capture this expert super sniper in the field. Flashing forward forward a bit because it's very relevant. Solid Snake in both the Twin Snakes guidebook as well as the Japanese MGS1 guidebook is called the greatest stealth operative in history. This would canonically put his innate talents above that of Quiet, which is crazy considering how well she can disappear, but this is also in line with the fact
So the problem with that is, like, I understand the logic. The problem is she's not a stealth operative.
called the greatest.
So, when she gains the parasites, I don't know if it's fair to say she's a stealth operative anymore.
She never was. She was basically a soldier that was hired by, like, Skullface to go in and try to assassinate like Big Boss. And it's after she gets caught on fire that she gets injected with the parasites.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, you could make the argument that before she gets the parasite, she was a stealth operative, but I feel like afterwards, you can't really say that claim. And even if you could, who's gonna put her as a point of reference? Like,
Who would even know that she's? You can't even make the argument that, like, even if Big Boss himself made that statement, you would have to try so many things to even extrapolate that Big Boss would even know who Quiet is.
As the Japanese MGS1 guidebook is called the greatest stealth operative in history.
Snake is living legend, a master of infiltration, and the best stealth operative ever deployed.
This would canonically put his innate talents above that of Quiet, which is crazy considering how well she can disappear, but this is also in line with the fact that in the 8-bit games as well as the first MGS, Snake can sneak around and outperform soldiers using optic camouflage, which renders you invisible similar to Quiet's powers. And Snake, despite not having that technology, is still considered the ultimate ninja, basically, even compared to someone like Gray Fox, who, as I'll describe later, is also intensely trained and uses optic camouflage similar to the Fear. This is even more consistent given the fact that Big Boss's missions basically required total stealth in line with Quiet's superpowers. The Skull unit shares Quiet's traits, with Snake dealing with entire squads of them. The game's art book noting that they possess instantaneous movement, which might only add to the series' trend of our heroes either possess instantaneous.
Okay, for their teleportation.
Okay, so the problem. We've always had this kind of problem in power scaling where if you react to teleportation, do you get to scale to like infinite speed?
Well, because the question here becomes: are you even reacting to teleportation? Because the skulls, while they can teleport, they teleport sort of by leaving a trail and then like appearing somewhere else.
Oh, it's not even just that. Like they also telegraph when they're about to do it.
Yeah, see, the trajectory of light is visible. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think instantaneous movement would scale to Snake personally.
Movement, which might only add to the series' trend of our heroes either predicting or outright reacting to sheer teleportation. They also sport an ability to reanimate hordes of soldiers via the air, with both this and the zombie-like bites being ineffective to Venom Snake.
Nothing else.
While the two big bosses work together, building their own army nation, David, later known as Solid Snake, is only around 12 years old.
Okay, so I don't know why this wasn't mentioned, but while Snake's missions require total silence, as me and Kyle kind of been sort of not joking but kind of mentioning, Skullface in MGS5 basically confirms he had to clean up Snake's messes. So we have a guy who was there.
Which means he's left bodies and bullet casings behind.
He's left some traces of evidence, whatever they are, that Skullface had to make sure disappeared. So keep that in mind, that you can't really argue for that stealth position because Skullface's existence contradicts at that point.
As of 1984, having been born via a program designed to clone Big Boss and then genetically modified further to become an even greater super soldier, the MGS4 database noting how the battle data derived from Null was also integrated into Snake's DNA, meaning it's likely the case that even all of the perfect soldier's abilities were coded into David on top of Big Boss's genes, talent, and potential before his birth. As he matured, he would be raised only within this context, being constantly trained in all manner of warfare, eventually joining the Green Berets before the age of of 18. He was deployed to Iraq during the Gulf War, and now that we're finally covering Solid Snake himself, let's really hone in on this. The Berets of this era primarily employed a combination of combat skills as well as linguistic and cultural expertise to infiltrate enemy lines. Covert ops focused on guerrilla warfare would routinely result in thorough devastation of targeted infrastructure. In our world, in this era, Colonel Bill Davis led his battalion consisting of mainly a few hundred Berets across Iraq and Kuwait as a part of Operations Desert Storm and Desert Shield. They managed to capture over 8,000 targets, obliterating thousands of weapons including tanks, saving teams of their own men from behind enemy territory. This was Solid Snake's pedigree, being renowned among the Berets all before he could legally drink. Following this, he would be selected and inducted into Foxhound, the successor to Big Boss's Fox unit, which he himself had cultivated and designed. This squad, by this point in the timeline, would surpass the likes of the Cobras and Fox to become the premier military.
Foxhound, the next generation special forces, they were without doubt the most skilled group of fighting men produced by the US, and they had hijacked a nuclear arsenal. Wait, hold on, let me...
At this point in the timeline would surpass the likes of the Cobras and Fox to become the premier military unit in all the world's history. Their modus operandi was the...
Okay, so to be clear, that's specifically only referencing Foxhound and the people produced by presumably the United States? Yeah. So, unless you're going to make the claim that every member of Foxhound is superior to Big Boss...
That's a big claim.
Well, no, that's what the statement would be saying here, because not all of the Cobras were born in the United States, so you wouldn't even use this to scale above the Cobras. Now, granted, I do think you can argue they're above the Cobras in general, but let's keep that in mind. That's not what this is saying.
The premier military unit in all the world's history. Their modus operandi was the training of solo operators, intent on infiltration and remaining undetected, with innumerable skills to ensure their success. It really would save time describing skills they haven't perfected. The MGS Prologue guide states they were trained for all possible scenarios, and the Darkness of Shadow Moses details them as the best of the best, with cutting it.
And the ringleaders are Foxhound members and a regular team of the best commandos the military has to offer, armed cutting-edge technology. The best of the best. Okay.
Tech and the utmost skilled.
Okay.
Why don't we have Hunk go through the fucking Metal Gear games?
Nope, no, it's just
Fighting
something.
force in U.S. history. Delta Force is specifically name-dropped here, with that unit seeking greater use than ever during the War on Terror, which was confirmed to have taken place in this universe. Having been selected for their unsurpassed adaptability and pressure, Foxhound surpasses their stealth, infiltration, strategic, and combat abilities, all while being defined by lone infiltrators rather than multi-man strike teams. Snake would be given his codename and direct training from Big Boss, who'd come to consider his clone his son.
Well,
I thought of a character idea. Why don't we do a protagonist swap? Hunk goes through Metal Gear.
later.
As its co-creator, the legendary mercenary would pass on his knowledge, including that of CQC to Solid Snake and all throughout Foxhound. This animal-derived codename system speaks to Snake's rank, with the title of Fox denoting the utmost skill level. This is notable as the first Snake of the series saw David worthy of his own former moniker. The father would teach the son to never give up, fight until the end, always believe you will succeed even when the odds are against you. This doctrine would not only define Snake's military career, but his entire life. David would also receive training from Kaz Miller, who after a series of betrayals promised to bless Snake with the talents necessary to surpass Big Boss himself. Kaz being someone who managed to go toe-to-toe with Big Boss during Peace Walker, both of them trying their utmost to knock out the other, and he's even called a specialist in all forms.
Okay, so I was not aware of that.
Walker, both of them trying their
dialogue.
utmost to knock out the other, and he's even called a specialist in all forms of war in the Kojima-approved official MGS mission handbook. Yet, despite receiving mentorship from both the best R World and the MGS.
Okay, so just to be clear, then, I'm at least glad that he's acknowledging that basically most of the fighters that came after MGS3 would basically just take down the boss.
This universe has to offer. In terms of his reputation within Foxhound, Solid Snake would still be a rookie before the world was gripped by the latest threat of nuclear Armageddon, as the military fortress Outer Heaven was revealed to have developed the ultimate weapon, Metal Gear. After Gray Fox, the most skilled among Foxhound, was captured, Big Boss sent Solid Snake to a fortress housing the toughest collection of mercenaries protected by the highest level of military technology. The MGS5 Piggyback Guide, which was 100% verified by Kojima, notes how at this point Big Boss dedicated himself to further strengthening his troops, meaning that even the lowliest of soldiers here should by and large prove greater threats to Snake than Big Boss's forces as of Peace Walker and even Phantom Pain. The soldiers of Big Boss's older private armies would include expert combatants, veterans of multiple battles, geniuses, Olympic gymnasts, former SWAT team operatives, and technically Venom Snake himself, at least before his hypnosis. Speaking of Gray Fox, we're told after this that he and Snake had already formed a competitive rivalry amidst their unit, with it sounding like the latter received training or mentorship from the former, adding to the long line of legends which helped to forge Metal Gear's true hero. Nonetheless, Snake remains mostly undetected as he destroys helicopters, tanks, the likes of masters of flamethrowers, shotguns, machine guns, boomerangs, and even Terminator-inspired cyborgs. As a cost of his victories, Solid Snake was injured before facing Venom Snake. By now, Venom Snake is around 63. By that same token, Snake has 40 years less experience, being considered a rookie with wounds earned across this mission. While a soldier's prime can vary in the real world, both Big Boss and The Boss were considered the strongest warriors well into their 40s or even 50s in the case of Venom Snake himself. Again, nuclear irradiated freaks and masters of harnessing their latent life energy. It's not intuitive to the real world, but those factors combined with willpower, which the boss stated to be the utmost defining factor during warfare, it just means these warriors have very different primes than you or I. Both Big Bosses are essentially billionaires dedicated to combat, with Venom being at the peak of his experience when an injured Solid Snake bested him, while really nothing indicates Venom held back here at all. So considering that
I'm gonna just say, are we really going to make the position that Venom Snake isn't a broken man after the events of MGS5?
He's a man who's lost basically everything, and from the tape recordings and from the timeline, you can basically make the assumption in a few years he loses Ocelot and Miller.
He has nothing left by the time you fight him in Shadow Moses. All he would have left would just be training. Listen. I'm not going to sit here and say he's
That's not true. He still had Pequod.
Oh, until we took Pequod down.
Well, that's why I said had.
That was the moment he died, when Pequod's fucking plane goes up in smoke. But no, all joking aside, like I feel like we're kind of downplaying the severity of everything he loses over the course of his life. He has nothing left. I don't know, you know, I guess there's not a statement confirming he was a broken man, so
Venom Snake was at least equal to Big Boss. This more or less means that an injured rookie Solid Snake could defeat or outshine literally everyone and everything I've thus far documented. Either way, 4 years later, the more experienced Solid Snake is called to the Central Asian state known as Zanzibar Land, after one famous Dr. Keo Marv was kidnapped in that territory. This incident would be sparked by the original Big Boss once again pursuing his dream of a nuclear-armed army nation. Snake would sneak around this heavily fortified base, solving puzzles and defeating a new squad of elite gimmick-wielding super soldiers, such as the Black Ninja, an armored special forces soldier amped to the utmost of human potential via drugs, which, to be honest, the 60-year-old Big Bosses could have also been using. Running Man, the self-styled fastest mercenary.
Okay, so again, you don't make those claims otherwise. And like, I know we kind of made an assumption there on that one, but you know, you don't make assumptions like that for a video like this.
Alive also falls to Snake, Red Blaster, and Elite Spetsnaz Master Assassin 2, not to mention the Four Horsemen, top SAS counter-terrorism hitmen, and Jungle Evil, a mercenary expert in guerrilla warfare, capable of wiping out 2 entire companies in Vietnam, which ranged from around 36 to 200 soldiers, all by himself. Night Fright is a member of a legendary unit far greater than the Green Berets, who also sports stealth camouflage.
Look, I understand this is all supposed to be going up over skill, but from the skills that you've already shown when it comes to close quarters combat, to his gun training, this doesn't sound as impressive as you think it is.
It's kind of
like who's realistically saying, oh, Solid Snake loses to my character uses guerrilla warfare?
How do I say it to make sense? These people are impressive, but they're not impressive in comparison to the people you listed earlier.
to what you've already shown.
Yeah, so we're getting to a point of redundancy here in the feats. Now, I understand the idea is to set up that, oh, even the fodder are really dangerous, but they're not really dangerous to Snake anymore. They're not even a threat anymore.
To sense him and take him out despite
I would
that.
say that,
Perhaps
like, they could potentially like fight the boss or beat the Cobras. That's fine. Like I probably wouldn't even disagree with that, but it could just be like a two-lined thing to say in the video and then move on. Because look, you do have a lot of scans, and your video is very nice to look at, but there is a lot of padding.
Yeah.
Most impressively, Solid Snake manages to defeat Gray Fox, once known as Null, in a bare-handed battle amidst a minefield. This is remarkable even on the face of it, as the official Japanese Portable Ops guide states that Null nearly beat a post-MGS3 big boss, who was wearing a sneaking suit to amp his CQC. However, as the top member of Foxhound, Fox would have undergone that unit's intense training as well as CQC tutoring.
Again, as impressive as that sounds, you've already established and you've already told us that Solid Snake is above Big Boss.
Well, no, more accurately, he'd be above Venom Snake, who, by this position provided in the video, would be stronger than Big Boss. So, yeah, beating Null is impressive until you realize that, oh, he beat someone who's vastly beyond Null.
You're basically saying that, like, Solid Snake is above Venom Snake, but by your own assertion, Venom Snake should also be able to beat Null.
Well, no. Venom Snake would fucking trash Null by his position. But, yeah, again, Null's not even a threat at this
Big
point.
Boss, which is doubly impressive for Solid Snake, as MGS4 reveals that he rejected the use of CQC after Big Boss's initial betrayal, which would have been after his battle with Venom Snake in the first Metal Gear game.
Also, how would it be impressive to beat Null if Null's skills ended up in Snake? So that would be more of a battle of equals to begin with, because Snake has more advantages.
From Solid Snake's perspective. So when adding all of this together, Solid Snake managed to outdo a far more capable version of a fighter who could press a sneaking suit-empowered Big Boss to the brink, all while refusing to use the most ideal martial art in this universe, when in all likelihood Gray Fox would be employing CQC to win. This is an insane showcase of Solid Snake's martial arts talent, but this feat also takes the series
this has to be something that needs to be said as well. You can give up using a really good martial arts, which is just a hybrid of the best techniques from other fighting techniques, and you can still win just by using like general like judo or like Krav Maga and shit like that. Just because you give up using the hybrid method doesn't mean you can't beat people who are using the hybrid method.
Yeah, but the argument a lot of people provide is because CQC is at least doubly as effective as other fighting styles, you're basically nerfing yourself by not using it, would be their
it's
position.
Superhuman strength. I've waited this long to truly unpack the strength of the series' titular Metal Gear super weapons, as it's very relevant at this point. Using grenades to target Metal Gear D's weak points, a chain reaction concludes in the utter destruction of Metal Gear D. Gray Fox totally withstood this from the inside, with the game's script describing this.
Metal Gear D comes unstable with blistering attacks led by its homing missiles. He dodges these while fighting back by tossing grenades at the machine's legs. Snake emerges triumphant, and a massive explosion ensues, and the remnants of Metal Gear D are thrown in all directions. In the process, however, Snake's clothing catches
explosion
fire,
as leaving very little of the mech left, reducing it to mere remnants. Metal Gear D is called many times more powerful than the TX-55 model seen in the very first game. The official Metal Gear Vs. Battle website denotes it as being more advanced in every way, and the Digital Graphic Novel database notes it as sporting fortified armor. And while basically every Metal Gear sports weak points in their legs, beyond that, it simply can't be understated how durable these weapons are. TX-55, an all-around inferior Metal Gear compared to D. In fact, TX-55 was just a prototype, while still being called the ultimate weapon in basically every source, including the words of Big Boss himself. In my opinion, I maintain that this is more than enough to place at least the sheer durability of the 8-bit Metal Gears above the likes of those seen in games set before them chronologically. Big Boss went out of his way to
So, to be as clear as possible, this is why a lot of people have issues using generalized statements of future timeline media when prequels happen. Because so much shit comes out in the prequel timeline that statements in the future don't quite make as much sense.
the biggest one we have with this is the Sahelanthropus. By all rights, me and Zim go over this when we talk about it in the Metal Gear Solid 5 streams. We could make a very solid argument just based off its moveset. It should be able to thrash all the Metal Gears that come after it in the timeline, even like Ray's.
Like, it just gets to a point where you're looking at it like, I understand this is what the statement says, but the statement was made years,
It was made 20
decades
years
even.
before this thing was developed and even like conceived.
Like, it's fine. It's just that this is the reason why people have issues when you do that.
Capture Dr. Madnar and force him to develop Metal Gears twice. The Good Doctor is known as the father of modern robotics, created cyborgs in the 1990s, and even repaired the future Super Cyborg Raiden as seen in MGS4. This is the guy that Big Boss sought out after years of working alongside Huey Emmerich, one of the engineers who developed and designed the likes of Peace Walker, Metal Gear Zeke, which is equal to Peace Walker, and ST-84, which makes the prior mechs look like child's play. Huey was actually still alive as of Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, so considering that Big Boss was truly hell-bent on making a weapon to rival the world's superpowers, with his wealth and influence, he could have easily found Huey and put him to work. But he chose Madnar and his designs instead. This proves that Metal
Okay, to be as clear as possible, you have no way of knowing that's because of a skill difference, or like, I guess an inventor's sort of skill difference, or if that's just a taste difference, because there's no way that Snake or that Big Boss wasn't told about Huey, and there's no way Big Boss would have been okay with Huey after learning everything he did. Let's not act here for a minute that the only reason he would have gone after someone else was just because the guy might have been better. Come on now.
Gear D is more durable than the likes of Peace Walker's CPU housing, which, as I said, was strong enough to withstand a nuclear war, and Gray Fox tanks its near utter annihilation. Some might look at this line of logic and assume Kojima instead retconned or retroactively changed the pecking order of the Metal Gears, but broadly speaking, that's not really how he thinks. For example, he commented how the sneaking suit scene in Metal Gear Solid 3 would then be later developed into those seen in MGS1. So he's more likely to consider prequel creations or inventions to have still been enhanced as time goes on in the series chronology. This is just a diegetic perspective after all, so if anything, for Gray Fox to survive D's destruction, he would have to be many, many times more durable than something designed to withstand a nuclear war. Plugging in the Fat Man bomb
No,
used in World War II, and
that's
applying
not how that's not how that works. So again, you could say all the weapons in Metal Gear should scale higher than like their real life counterparts based on that. That's fine. I'm fine with conceding that point. But because he survives being in the explosion of the machine, that could the machine's structural integrity was already compromised by that logic if it's exploding. So you can't really do it one to one.
Well, even then, like, I have to raise the question of, like, how do these weak points make sense in your mind if a regular hand grenade is capable of damaging it so badly it'll blow up? Do you really think it's going to withstand a nuke?
Well, that's not even the problem. Like, let's assume that like the grenades get there like just via weird game magic because Metal Gear is weird. Because it takes multiple of them, and because later on we see the way you beat Metal Gear is by destroying the structural integrity of the Metal Gear. This is even like how it's done in Rising Revengeance. You can't really say it should scale one to one if you're inside of it and you tank it exploding.
You know what? I just remembered right now that you destroy a metric fuck ton of Metal Gear Rays with an RPG in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yes, you do.
I can't wait to
That
see
was a
what he
fucking
says.
annoying. That was annoying as shit to do.
I can't wait to see what he says regarding that one.
Many times statement, Fox could be anywhere in the realm of nearly 600 trillion to 6 quadrillion joules, as many often means 10 or even 100 times greater. That's 150 kilotons of TNT, or as high as 1.5 megatons of TNT. These are forces capable of destroying
the compromise I'll give is kind of what I do for Ratchet to some extent, but worse. Let's say I give you that scaling, but with weapons. He would not get that scaling without his weapons.
Well,
That would be my concession.
in this case, it wouldn't matter because he's basically saying that Snake survives the explosion. The explosion blew up armor that could withstand nukes. So in this case, weapons wouldn't matter because he would just be arguing straight durability.
Entire cities, yet they don't make Fox blink. And a holding back Solid Snake launched the superhuman's broken body into a minefield. After this, the original Big Boss does combat with his son, who at this point has lost all of his weapons. Kaz, supporting Snake, tells him that he can't defeat Big Boss with his fists alone. Maybe Miller means Snake would just get shot trying to fistfight a legendary soldier wielding a machine gun. Regardless, Solid Snake manages to outwit the greatest soldier of the legendary defeat Big Boss.
Snake, that guy's a monster. You can't
Argument where in the same game, he can dodge lasers like consistently.
See, this is the problem. This is the problem where you bring up where you go into the idea of trying super hard to explain away these inconsistencies, because that's not what this statement is saying. You are assuming other information. All that we know is that Miller is claiming Snake cannot win with his fists. This would also mean that if Snake could close the gap, Big Boss would beat him in a fight, according to Miller.
He's just a better close quarters combat fighter. Look, you can call it what it is. Like, not every series makes power scaling easy. Sometimes you just have to look at it and be like, well, plot's just plot.
Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
With his fists alone. Maybe Miller means Snake would just get shot trying to fistfight a legendary
Like,
soldier.
God forbid, like, fucking,
Regardless,
as people who scale multiple series, like, especially things like One Piece and that, like, shit happens. Like, stuff happens that you can't explain why.
He just got led
soldier of the 20th century for a second time. This informs the theme of the series, with Kojima plainly stating that Big Boss and then Solid
Well, no,
Snake
because like this brings up something as well, because he doesn't acknowledge this. If they are as durable as he says they are, and if I wanted to be like a real dick about this, how does Big Boss get hurt by hairspray and a lighter? Because that's how you canonically beat him.
No, Kyle, because nuclear fire is not part of the nuke scaling, so it gets a pass because we're only doing force, we're doing joules.
It's like, it's fine, but you don't have to try and find a way to explain away every little inconsistency.
Listen,
look, Kojima is a great writer, but sometimes he writes shit in retrospect. Like, this is what we always say. Like, the reason why 3 and the prequel timeline happens is so he can explain the shit that's going to happen in 4, and 5 is just there to explain the shit that happens in fucking 4 as well.
The idea is very simple. Look, when you try to make everything make sense, because a lot of the newer crowded power scalers, and I'm not sure if Crisis is all that new, but they're like, I think it was, who was the guy's name? I think it was Surfbone who started the idea that you have to like always have everything make as much sense as possible within the narrative for your scaling to be accurate. Like, that's a fine idea to work with, but then you have arguments like these where you have a very clear anti-fee and you have to brush it off with these weird assumptions when very clearly the intent is not that.
You have multiple anti-feats. Because again, not to hark on about this, but again, with the Sahelanthropus, you know what you can use to beat the Sahelanthropus? The regular machine guns on the back of Jeeps if you want to.
It's not a big deal. It's just that, like, when you go out of your way to try and retroactively explain every little detail, it starts sounding less believable, especially the people who have at least have a decent amount of familiarity with the series you're talking about, you know?
Or if you already have detractors, this is the problem with going too much into detail. While it can help clarify some things, you can also unintentionally arm your detractors with ammunition.
Yeah.
years, making
Because the
latter
more you try and explain shit, and the more in depth you try to explain it, the more and harder it is to defend it. It's one of those weird monkey paws where the more you have, the easier it is to explain, but the easier it is to explain, the harder it is to defend.
new greatest
Yes.
warrior of any age. It is funny to point out that Snake used a makeshift flamethrower to defeat Big Boss. Withstanding heat is mostly different than surviving blunt force. Consider that a lighter pressed against a UFC fighter's skin is going to immediately damage it despite sporting far fewer joules than a power punch. This is because heat and especially flames produce thermal energy, which burns through molecular bonds. Solid Snake would as well be scarred by fire later in life, but this is all
Again,
rather inconsistent.
Let's just
with
call it
cause
what
and
it is, because I've said this for several videos. There are different kinds of durability. You can
Yeah.
just sum it up that way. Not all durability is fucking.
Yeah, but
You
to,
know.
to be fair, he's explaining how different durabilities can work here. So
Solid
this
Snake
is
would as
fine.
well be scarred by fire later in life, but this is all rather inconsistent with Kaz and Big Boss suffering 0 burns after a bomb blast and helicopter crash. Big Boss is even lit on fire by a guy called the Man on Fire and barely suffers anything. Even lightning, which Big Boss withstood, can often burn hotter than the surface of the sun. Snake himself even survived 3 minutes in a microwave later on with abundant thermal energy. I'm not saying this didn't happen, but just as with Ground Zero's ending, there are multiple factors here that don't necessarily lead to the conclusion that Big Boss is weaker than a lighter per se. I mean, the original 8-bit game leads us to believe he like completely exploded, whereas later games extrapolate that he was kind of rendered like a skinny husk or something, so I don't know. Either way, David would more or less reject his ascension, burdened by his PTSD and shaken by the perceived twice over betrayal of his father and mentor. Retiring from the army, Snake would instead be poached by the CIA, where he'd serve for half a year. This is how a, at the time, 25-year veteran of CIA operations describes their boot camp.
You're going to jump out of planes and do escape and evasion, shoot weapons of all types, learn self-defense, demolitions, and improvised weaponry, how to do the agent acquisition cycle and use disguises and run surveillance programs to determine whether you're being followed or not, how to follow other people so you can conduct surveillances. You'll learn secret writing, you'll learn photography, you'll learn how to sketch. I mean, you will learn the entire litany of what we call the tradecraft.
After his stint there, he'd spend the next few years as a hitman and assassin, notably accruing the highest bounties likely due to his matchless skills. These experiences would put him in further line with Big Boss and Venom Snake as former CIA operatives and then hired guns. However, his trauma would compound until David would seek a quiet retirement in Alaska, where at the age of 33, his premier skills as a warrior would be required to cull the greatest terrorist threat in human history. Snake's former commanding officer at Foxhound would draft him in a battle against a rogue faction of that very unit. A man with Snake's own codename leads a team of specialists, seizing the nuclear waste disposal and secret weapons facility on the Alaskan Shadow Moses Island. Now armed with a proper sneaking suit, which should offer better resistance to temperatures as low as negative 320 degrees Fahrenheit, as Big Boss's portable ops suit could withstand liquid nitrogen, extreme heat, gunfire, and general impacts, nerve agents, toxins, all while boosting Snake's hand-to-hand talents, as well as first-generation nanomachines, which boost Snake's adrenaline, stamina, cognition, memory, and concentration at a molecular level, as he already boasts a 180 IQ. This places him as equal to or beyond chess grandmasters, world-renowned philosophers, and Nobel Prize-winning quantum physicists, with every IQ point being dedicated to each art of war since birth. It's also worth saying that from a lore perspective, these nanomachines are advanced versions of the parasites, which gave Quiet and the Skull unit just downright superpowers. But Snake's not the only genius here, as the latest brand of armed guards would be the Genome Soldiers. Virtual reality
Can I get a source on that advanced form of the parasite? Because, to my knowledge, the parasite basically dies in MGS5. Because not only does the final strains kind of die with Skullface, but in the extended cut ending, the last parasites that get burned away are removed.
They die on the island.
Yeah.
They die on the island, and Code Talker makes it a point to say that once he dies, that's it.
Yeah, like listen. If that's true, that's great. Just that should have had a scan.
trained Foxhound reserve members sporting greater than 180 IQs, with each merc having their genes rewritten to match that of Big Boss. This would boost their instincts, senses, and strengthen them overall to the point that they'd surpass Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, and the Night Stalkers per the in-universe Into the Darkness of Shadow Moses novel, which was written based on comprehensive data derived from Snake's in-field experience. The Night Stalkers are primarily aerially inclined masters of the skies, and with Delta Force already described, SEAL Team 6 consists of handpicked elite Navy SEALs and specialize in intel gathering of all forms, working alongside other units, explosive infiltration, weapons training, and close quarters battle. CQB involves short-range combat with firearms, melee weapons, or hand-to-hand, likely some combination of Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Arnis, Eskrima, Kali, etc. Snake manages to sneak past and defeat scores of these genome soldiers, even as they wield stealth camouflage and attempt to overwhelm him through superior numbers. While CQC and MGS has its own unique qualities compared to its real variation, CQB seems to share.
I barely have any health. They would shred me.
Snake being noted as an expert himself, taking out the enemy with utmost efficiency. However, the skills of mere genomes would be dwarfed by the team of Foxhound proper, first among them being Revolver Ocelot, who Snake has a shootout with. Remember the gunslinger as a rival to Venom Snake during the mid-80s, now with Foxhound's unparalleled training added to his arsenal. The game's script describes their battle as fierce, within the Darkness of Shadow Moses positing that Snake was on the verge of victory before the fight was interrupted. On the face of it, this is already a great feat for Snake, but by digging deeper into the Kojima edited and endorsed novels, it becomes even more legendary. The narration emphasizes both Snake and Ocelot's ability to predict and analyze their opponents from an elevated perspective, as they each boast enough skill to calculate all possible scenarios in the battle before them, with the marksman posing a threat equal to that of 100,000 enemies per sheer versatility. And as far as we know, Snake was about to win. Around here in the Twin Snakes GameCube remake version of events, Snake would first face the cyborg-empowered version of Gray Fox, dodging and outmaneuvering his katana skills, with this depiction being actually encouraged and thoroughly overseen and approved by Kojima per a 2004 interview with GameSpot.
Yeah, this one actually kind of annoys me. Not necessarily the feat in question, but it is very clearly supported that the GameCube version of Metal Gear Solid 1 is more accurate to what Kojima would have wanted, and yet that one never gets ported over.
Well, that's what I would assume, because that's what the remake is for.
Yeah,
it's the Repel 1 the way he wanted it to be told.
Yeah, it's just really annoying.
Without the limitations of hardware.
170 from August 2003. He even went as far as
which always fucking annoyed me, why they didn't port that version over, but we got the original version of one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just so annoying how we don't get that version.
Scenes are perfected and enhanced compared to the original PS1 version. Truthfully, these games are officially noted as having the very same story. Regardless, Snake is then shown flipping away from a tank round. Kojima stated in the MGS1 Japanese guide that acrobatic moves likewise add to his image as a legendary soldier, so let's go ahead and mark down perfect gymnast to Snake's bevy of skills. After defeating Vulcan Raven in a tank, Snake fights Fox in hand-to-hand no matter which version.
Why that's in contention, because that's an animation that you can do in the original one.
Yeah, but still.
It's the fucking cartwheel.
After defeating Vulcan Raven in a tank, Snake fights Fox in hand-to-hand no matter which version. As
No, that's not a slight on him. That's for, like, the general populace who try and fucking shit on Twin Snakes.
Once conditioned to be the perfect soldier, almost beat Big Boss back in the day, then undergoes the best Black Ops training of all time. Learn to mark.
Okay, I know it's just to add more, like, threat level, but does that training really improve someone who's already at the pinnacle of being a soldier to the point where they can rival Big Boss in a fight? Like, listen, like, it's good training. I'm not saying it's not good training, but, like, how much is this really adding to a person's combative abilities? What are they showing him that he actually doesn't already know vastly more about?
At the point that you said that he's basically better than the elite, like, special forces, at what point do you just have to sit there and decide this is just padding and this just does not matter to be added?
At what point does this training start being moot? would be like
martial art surpassing
what I'd say.
anything in the real world, maybe an infinite times over, proves more durable than a nuke-proof mech, and now has a cyborg exoskeleton stated to strengthen him to the utmost of his potential. The MGS4 database states these increase strength by several times, which is at least around a 3 times multiplier. Snake outdoes Fox again in hand-to-hand, while the latter abuses stealth camouflage. The Japanese MGS1 novel blatantly confirms Fox was not holding back here. He genuinely wanted to settle the score against Snake in a fight to the death. And again, Fox should be using CQC here, while Snake instead withholds from using the technique. Tying this to info revealed in the Japanese Peace Walker guide, CQC squarely targets someone's confidence, which the boss as well as many others call the most potent weapon in a soldier's arsenal. So this means that not only is Snake's toolset severely handicapped when abstaining from CQC himself in fights such as this, but his willpower, his greatest asset, would be under assault against foes like Fox, while he sports no such advantage. Plus, developer commentary within the Integral edition of MGS1 states Fox practices ancient ninjutsu, modern gymnastics, and Chinese martial arts, which sounds a lot like Qigong to me. Fox's upgrades are also described as state-of-the-art, which goes to show how much stronger Snake is than he was during the first Metal Gear, as the cyborgs in that game were impervious to all but Snake's most powerful weapons. Now he can just knock around and toss aside stronger ones. Especially in Twin Snakes, Fox is a beast, with his feats proving point-blank assault rifle fire is easily within Solid Snake's ability to dodge. And if Snake does anything in the Twin Snakes, it's dodge. After Fox, Snake would face Psycho Mantis, truly one of the most powerful beings in the series, boasting telekinesis and telepathy on top of contemporary mercenary skills. He is in fact the strongest psychic on Earth, with lesser ones capable of causing natural disasters. Off the top of your head, you'd surely think of earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes. One of the most historically infamous volcanic eruptions was that of Mount Vesuvius, which generated 100,000 times the thermal energy yield of the Hiroshima-Nagasaki bombs per Smithsonian magazine. That's enough force to obliterate an entire large mountain, with the MGS1 mission log a literal
Okay, but like, if you caused that explosion, would you really scale to the full force of that explosion? I feel like that's not quite the one-to-one you're kind of making it out to be there. Sonic and Otacon stay with her until her moment of death. Snake successfully goes through the entrance underground maintenance base north of the snowfield and heads for a lower level to get to the Metal Gear.
In-game synopsis of events as you return to the game, confirming that Snake survived psychokinetic blast from Mantis. He also managed to kill 1,000 people with his mind all at once, and his ability to read someone's entire destiny even struck fear in Liquid Snake. He also deems solids to read someone's
While you're at it, why don't you also just, say that you controlled Vulcan and also controlled, like, the Sahelanthropus at one point as well?
Zamash is able to correctly point out the actions of an individual by looking at their path of life, and this has shocked even Liquid Snake. Okay, is that what he said?
Managed to kill 1,000 people with his mind all at once, and his ability to read someone's entire destiny even struck fear in Liquid Snake.
Okay, that's not what it said, unless there's something else there? Yeah, it just says he was shocked. It didn't say it struck fear into him.
All at once, and his ability to read someone's entire destiny even struck fear in Liquid Snake. He also deems Solid Snake a very powerful warrior. A guidebook titled The Shedding also offers insight saying that Mantis saw purity within Snake's heart. Oftentimes, depending on the fictional series, a pure heart can offer a bevy of resistances to certain curses or attacks, or would grant access to certain weapons. This would be more or less exclusive to Solid Snake in the series, as both Big Boss and Raiden, the other protagonists, usually contend with some inner conflict or lust for revenge, with the soldier as well resisting Mantis's psychic illusions and mind reading via clearing his own mind and fighting without conscious thought, which is usually the mark of a godly martial artist depending on the fictional series. This also puts Mantis in a Looney Tunes type caliber, as he infamously reads the console's memory cards, references save data, and forces the player to change the controller port, which characters in the universe call back to later on. One interpretation posits that Mantis's powers consist of breaking the fourth wall and Snake has mastery of video game controller boards, which if we take it seriously means that Snake's pretty cracked as far as video game characters go. I'm just saying I don't see Kratos manipulating the console itself. Again, the novelization provides more context, categorizing this feat as an example of Snake's sneaking mode, described as a mental state wherein the user totally integrates himself into his environment while removing any trace of himself. It allows him to sense changes in the air or temperature, react without thinking, and even detect the intent within others, as well as notice when others skilled in this technique tap into the higher level of cognition, such as Ocelot. There have been many examples of superhuman senses throughout the series, such as Big Boss being able to canonically sense and track multiple people across miles of terrain, or seeing ghosts, all of the implications of Qigong, etc. I think it's fair to say all those abilities would fall under its category, which Snake then uses to defeat Mantis before facing the leader of the rogue Foxhound unit and Snake's fellow clone brother, Liquid Snake, who funnily enough called Mantis pathetic after his loss to Solid Snake. Armed with a Russian gunship, it's still not enough to beat the man who makes the impossible possible, as he shoots down Liquid with a missile launcher. In the MGS1 Japanese strategy guide, Kojima actually went out of his way to say that Liquid was holding back here, and could have killed Snake easily. However, this was in 1998, with the 2015 MGS1 novelization confirming Liquid had murderous intent here. As stated, Kojima edited these novels and made changes as he saw fit, so I think this is a rare case where new info, specifically approved by Kojima, supersedes an older interview statement. To me, the most valid pieces of evidence are ones that are the most consistent with the
Okay, so
sources.
pause for a sec. That's not something that should ever be in contention. Whenever you have new information, that always supersedes the old. It doesn't matter how good or how bad the old information was for the character, the new information always supersedes.
Yes. That is correct.
Master book released in 2023 described Liquid's assault here as relentless. I'll break down Liquid much further later on in the video, but for now, Solid Snake next manages to outdo Foxhound's greatest marksman, the master genius sniper, Sniper Wolf, sporting one of the most accurate rifles. Everything that can be said about Ocelot's shooting abilities, Wolf is his superior, having trained under the greatest snipers on Earth, becoming the best of them aside from Snake. In MGS5, the Parasite-empowered Quiet, while cosplaying as Wolf, is called merely the next best thing, which coincides with her use of a variation of Snake's sneaking mode, with Snake.
So
Okay, I'm gonna be very clear. Sniper Wolf and anyone who taught her would not know who Quiet is, and second of all, I would put money if you were to have Quiet fight Sniper Wolf would get her shit pushed in.
It's also worth noting that the intent behind this comment, unless clarified, could also just be more of a fan servicey reference, because a lot of the MGS girls are rather attractive, and maybe you have a taste for Sniper Wolf. Well, you don't get Sniper Wolf, but here's Quiet. So it could be a more of a fan service thing than an actual scaling thing there. I feel like, a little reaching here, but that's fine.
Next best thing, which coincides with her use of a variation of Snake's sneaking mode, with Snake confirmed to have bested her at her own game. Wolf, along with the boss and Snake himself to some degree, are all good examples of how even in the face of ESP, a superhuman connection to the battlefield, or parasite powers, these guys surpass all of that through raw skill alone. This also demonstrates how little high caliber bullets affect the hero, as after a shot to the chest, it merely knocks him off his feet, wherein he just gets right up and takes a phone call. He doesn't even seem to really care. Thereafter, he has a rematch with Vulcan Raven, a massive, super strong magic shaman who had prior walked off multiple grenade explosions, causing the tank he was in to detonate. Kojima explained that Liquid Snake, or the final boss of all these games, are likely the strongest, which again proves these guys are not normal people. Liquid Snake is stronger
I have
than
something to say
multiple
about the previous sniper thing. How much of that is the suit being able to protect him, and how much of that is Snake's durability?
Yeah, because I believe earlier he did mention the suits would become bulletproof.
Made blast to the face. The novel as well boosts his stocks, detailing how the light of the sun, shape of the clouds, flow of the wind, rhythm of the waves, and blinking of the stars all inform him as to the upcoming events on the battlefield. His ancestors are even stated to have used this magic to predict the technological age thousands of years ago, meaning Snake may have outmaneuvered someone with that degree of a crystal ball, informing his every action.
Okay, so
Now
this
he
is
has
one of those statements where I'm like, how serious are you going to take Raven? Because he could just be spouting some native bullshit just to be cryptic.
To be fair, I think he's using like more of a narrative statement, more of like a narrator statement than actually a statement from the character.
Well, a good time to talk about the kind of mythical language attributed to this series' protagonist, as Raven compares Snake and Liquid's combat aptitude to those of a demon. With Big Boss having been called a god of combat in the past, Solid Snake is then hailed as a demon god via narration. You have to think, given what we know about Foxhound's level and the magic superhuman insights this series offers, titles on this scale are almost unfathomable to comprehend. Speaking of Liquid, he pilots Metal Gear Rex.
I would also like going back to the better shooter than Ocelot section. Does she ever even demonstrate feats on Ocelot's level of like bouncing bullets and shit? I mean, like, I guess the statement is just like overrides everything else, but I don't know, mate. Like maybe different types of shooting.
No, because if you go back to the statement where she stated, it stated she's the best sniper or the best marksman, which marksman's usually like a rifleman.
Well, like that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know if that would really fall in line with Ocelot's style of shooting because he's more of like a trick, you know.
He's a gunslinger.
Yeah, so they're kind of different there. Now, granted, if you want to say she's still a better sniper, I mean, yeah, it's fine. I don't know. Just a weird little
a super weapon
there.
Greater than any mech described thus far, with composite armor more durable than anything seen before, from the mouth of a developer of Black Ops Tech and the son of Huey Emmerich, designer of Peace Walker, Zeke, and Sahelanthropus.
Okay, you say designer of Huey Emmerich, but like, does he ever even know what Huey did? Like, why would that matter? Just
Rex and any mech or super soldier who surpasses it later on would for sure be stronger than Peace Walker's armor. This battle also proves Snake's combat speed is as well superhuman, as the mission log states he dodged Rex's attacks, with one of the mech's primary weapons being a weaponized electron laser, which Liquid fires various times throughout the boss fight. To dodge a laser on the face of it and without making unnecessary assumptions would grant Snake some measure of light speed reaction times. Now, Snake's not the Flash. He can't run near
Why is this impressive? He dodges lasers in the original Metal Gear.
To be as fair as possible regarding this laser attack too, based on the way it is being trailed, you could technically argue he's not dodging the laser itself, but the thing moving the laser, like, it's fine. I think light speed at Metal Gear is fine. It's just not the strongest laser feed you could have brought up.
Twitch muscle fibers allow them to dodge attacks far faster than what speeds sprinters are capable of. So too would Snake be able to avoid beams traveling at well over 870,000 times the speed of sound. By now in the series, we already have bullet and lightning timers, with Metal Gears as old as ST-84 wielding a laser per the MGS5 piggyback guide. The Master Book plainly states a rookie Snake dodged TX-55's laser in the original game, and even Gray Fox wielded a laser himself. In the Twin Snakes Brady game,
it is weird to not mention the laser feed earlier on, but that's
Games
fine.
Guide, it claims that Mantis moves at computer hyperspeed, with modern high-end CPUs and GPUs operating in the billions to trillions of operations per second. As data inside a computer travels near the speed of electricity in a conductor, and given how in this universe genuine AI was created during the 1970s, this is probably even more impressive. That's all ignoring Big Boss and Venom Snake's ability to deal with foes boasting instant teleportation. Nevertheless, Snake at this point has spent hours single-handedly fighting the best assortment of warriors ever collected in history, and was also tortured by a genius of sadism, with his fatigue described as beyond the threshold of pure pain. Despite that, after Gray Fox's sacrifice, Snake still outmaneuvers Rex and Liquid, who, similar to Gray Fox, is totally unscathed after Rex is rendered inoperable. Given his injuries, it makes sense that Snake would be rendered unconscious here, yet he rises to finally face Liquid mano a mano. For background, Liquid was devised by Kojima, as he figured the only way to raise the stakes after the MSX games was to have Snake face himself, even using Venom versus Spider-Man as an analogy. He is more powerful than any boss seen in the 8-bit games, and is stated a multitude of times to be equal to, if not stronger than, Solid Snake. A lot of this is predicated on the whole dominant recessive gene debate within the game itself. Kojima actually said that it doesn't even matter, that's not how cloning works in his universe. Regardless, this speaks volumes, as Snake himself is battered and bruised and lacks a sneaking suit during their fight, lessening his hand-to-hand capabilities. Yet, he still prevails through sheer unflinching will.
Why would that be impressive if his opponent also isn't using the sneaking suit either? Like, they would just be on level playing field. The Snake need an amp to do all of his feats? Is that the insinuation?
Power. As to if Liquid was employing CQC here while Snake didn't, I'm not sure. Each of Big Boss's clones sport statements of inheriting all of his talents and abilities, and a young Liquid did spend some time alongside Venom, Snake, and Ocelot, each masters of CQC, so this may be another factor in which Snake faced a stacked deck and came out on top. To get into Snake's head a bit,
okay, so this is something that needs to be the story kind of alludes to this, but it's like, for as much as Eli didn't like being on Mother Base, he did learn he did learn things from there, like how to fight better.
I mean, so you would assume he's using CQC just
Well,
because of the fact.
Well,
that,
he does, because what he does is, remember in one of the cutscenes when you come back, he's beating up one of Mother Base's soldiers, and all of the soldiers there are trained in CQC.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say was, I believe in MGS1, Snake mirrors Liquid's moves because he does it again in MGS4. So that raises a question as to whether or not he's using CQC if Snake's mirroring his moves. But, you know, I could be just misremembering MGS1's fight.
Respect and value one another's presence as they
Actually get along really well. They fight precisely because they're close. At the end, when they're escaping, Liquid, who everyone thought was dead, shows up right, and then Snake shouts Liquid as if he's been waiting for him. That's him expressing joy. The two are less like enemies and more like unparalleled rivals. The fact that comes through shows that director Kitamaru understood that.
cherish the challenge. They both pose as true rivals. He also said that despite his open denial, Snake actually does enjoy killing his enemies and revels in
Wait, what the fuck? Hold up, what? That's what he says, but he actually enjoys it. While the overarching theme is anti-war and anti-nuclear sentiment, the core theme is genetics, specifically the contrast between a fate determined by one's genetics code and the ability to carve out one's own life. Elements like the genome soldiers, Liquid, the idea that certain genes may predispose someone to violence, Naomi becoming a geneticist to uncover her past, and the Fox Eye storyline. Wait, so Snake actually likes killing people?
He also said that despite his open denial, Snake actually does enjoy killing his enemies and revels in combat, at least at this point in the series. This further supports Snake's position as superior to Gray Fox, even with his laser and sword in hand, as Liquid would have kept him alive if he was capable of truly matching him like Snake can. After a subsequent car chase / shootout against Liquid, the villain finally dies once and for all, and Snake enjoys a brief respite before duty calls yet again. 2 years after Shadow Moses, Solid Snake is a fully self-actualized and legendary
Playthrough, we had Huey on the back.
warrior, forged through battle to become the strongest soldier in all of history, as stated in the MGS4 database, Japanese Peace Walker Technical Co-ops Guide, the MGS2 novel, and the Shedding book from the MGS3 Extreme box set. Basically, everyone is considered a soldier, so metahumans that can tank multiple grenade, rocket launcher, assault rifle fire attacks, Psycho Mantis who can
Hold on. Are we really calling the Burned Man a soldier? Or I guess it's the Burning Man? I actually forgot what they called him in the game. I know it was either Burned or Burning Man.
On fire.
It was the Man on Fire? Man, I was way off on that one. Man, I don't know if it's fair to call that one a soldier. Come on now. That's a little...
Okay, at best, former soldier.
I was gonna say that one's a little reaching. Come on.
disasters. People who
Well,
can
it's also
teleport,
like,
shoot electricity.
how generous are you going to give that to basically a reanimated corpse?
The corpse died a soldier, so it's alive as a soldier.
Read your mind. This is necessarily how strong Solid Snake would be in the lore, which all of these things were released after a lot of the prequel games, so it kind of debunks the idea that Kojima's like constantly retconning power levels. He himself implied Snake to be even tougher than ever in MGS2, which is crazy as he's still not using CQC, and his sneaking suit has become ragged and worn down since MGS1. Hideo as well said that Snake's incredible strength actually makes him a less than credible playable character. As the director-writer explained, it really wouldn't make sense for Snake at this point to receive tutorial-like instructions or even lose the mission under the player's controls. One example of his current legendary stature is at the beginning of the game, where Snake manages to completely sneak around an entire room of trained Marines. I mean, in terms of raw numbers, this has to be the best stealth feat in the entire series. He's become so skilled that he can only be viewed from a third-party perspective, who would understandably see him as an idol. Thus, Raiden would fill that role, a former child soldier lethally trained by yet another Big Boss clone, Solid as Snake, this time a perfect genetic match, with Solid and Liquid actually being within percentage differences of Big Boss, which that combined
This is at
with
2
the
times
power
speed,
and
right?
letting your
What? No.
This is at 2 times speed, right?
No, 1.25. Dude, if we had this at 2 times speed, you wouldn't be able to understand what the fuck he's saying. We're almost there.
genes define you, as is kind of the whole point of the franchise, could explain their becoming much stronger than their father.
No, well,
Raiden
what
would be
upsets
strictly
me
trained
about this video is that it's well structured, but for all the important information, this could have just been 15, 20 minutes.
I think this is a 30-minute video masquerading as an hour and 30 minutes. Yeah.
in virtual reality, an
Fucking
approximation of the now
Fred's being
defunct
generous.
Fox Sound, in an attempt to recreate Solid Snake, a microcosm of a larger program to test the
you would
limits of
have to get
control
time
of the
for this
human
game to
psyche.
read a
Despite
little
hundreds of VR missions ranging from weapons training and infiltration to multiple simulacrums of
No,
Snake's
not if you
legendary
delete the 15, 20 minutes of fucking CQC and how many special forces he scales to when you could have just mentioned it once.
ranging from weapons training and infiltration to multiple simulacrums of Snake's prior legendary exploits. Kojima confirmed outright in the Dengeki O November 2002 magazine that Snake is still stronger than Raiden when everything's said and done, recounting an event where he had to break the news to a then saddened collection of Raiden fans. Which, hey man, I've been there too. In Metal Gear Solid 2, we are subject to the startling revelation that Iroquois Pliskin over here is actually the cover identity of Solid Snake. Creating and maintaining cover identities is for sure in line with the CIA, which is an organization Snake had prior trained under. He seemingly does slip up at one point and recites the Marine Corps motto, where he should be acting as a Navy SEAL. However, we are told in the Metal Gear Solid official HD Collection Operation Guide that every time Pliskin acts clumsy, it's all part of the plan. This might be some 5D chess move to really muddy the water as to who the hell he even is. I think what's actually really impressive about this is his cover worked. Raiden was trained under VR simulation.
It's the sum up Metal Gear Solid 2. It's let's fuck with Raiden in the game.
Of basically every single one of Snake's biggest missions up until that point. He is a certified genius, and yet Snake's cover was so good that it was only until he willingly revealed himself to Raiden that he ever learned the truth. In a 2012 GamesIndustry.com interview, he also contrasted Snake as the ultimate badass as opposed to Raiden. The MGS2 novel also features many scenes of Raiden being in outright awe of Snake's combat abilities, and the MGS2 IDW motion comic, which again, Kojima upheld in that same MGS3 existence tier as a source valid enough to just watch instead of playing the games. It shows Snake easily deal with foes capable of pressing Raiden in 1v1 battle, so anything the younger soldier can do, Snake surpasses by an order of pressing Raiden in
Big dinner box.
Oh wow, we got another ad.
The hut.
watch instead of
Because older games there's got different control feeling from what we have today. Thus we decided to include those watch MGS for those who has difficulty playing.
playing the games. It shows Snake easily deal with foes capable of pressing Raiden in 1v1
So Snake just beat Solidus in a one-on-one fight that easily?
battle, so anything the younger soldier can do, Snake
Damn,
surpasses
Solidus is a fucking joke.
by an order of magnitude. Said foes being elite Russian mercs, later sporting exoskeletons and katanas akin to Gray Fox. Speaking of Gray Fox, the female Soviet Olga Gurlukovich shares physical talents with the cyborg, with Raiden being instructed to steer clear of her. Snake beat her at the start of MGS2 and off-screen during Raiden's escapades. There is as well the Dead Cell Anti-Terrorist Squad. Per statements as well as the timeline, Foxhound, as seen in MGS1, should just surpass Dead Cell since the former unit was deemed the greatest on Earth, and Dead
Okay. How do you intend to make good on the third nuclear launch? With these questions still unanswered, the government decided on a seemingly reckless course of action. For this daunting task of stopping a nuclear strike and freeing the hostages from the clutches of these ultimate soldiers, they sent in a single man.
Cell operated in that same era. Skipping right past Fat Man, Vamp is a master of knives sporting ancient magic with the ability to perfectly predict one's actions via their eyes or slight muscle movements, which is already a staple in the timeline. Big Boss could do that in the 1960s. Interestingly though, Raiden's sneaking suit is able to counter Vamp's ability here, so this is likely the case too for Snake when he gets an even better set of armor. Dead Cell actually has a couple of extra members, or had. They were intended to be featured in MGS2 at one point in development, but were scrapped. However, some traces of them exist in the lore, such as Vamp wearing their dog tags after they'd perished, suggesting they did once inhabit the timeline. This would mean Snake, as history's greatest soldier, outclasses Old Boy, an over 100-year genius and mentor to Big Boss, which it is fair to say Naked Snake had more than one teacher during his life, and China.
Hang on. Is that somebody that he's claiming is in Dead Cell?
Yes.
It doesn't matter if they were intended to be in at one point. If they're not in the final product, you don't get to associate that with current.
I think the question that gets raised now would be, are the dog tags that Vamp has, are they the names of these characters or not? Because if they're not the names, then you just wouldn't include them.
Genius and mentor to Big Boss, which it is fair to say Naked Snake had more than one teacher during
Cut content is a very murky area when it comes to scaling, but rule of thumb is unless you have good reason to use cut content, you would not use it because it didn't make it in the
his
final
life.
product.
And Chinaman.
Let's be very clear here when it comes to like what you can use. Cut content or content that's supposed to be in there it's very dubious because it depends if you want to say that like these characters existed, they were intended to be in there, but they're not anymore. Okay, that's fine. They're still kind of canon. They're just not at those events. But if you're gonna do stuff like that, then that would also mean that like that artworks for different powers and abilities from different series that never made it in should also be like fair game.
Yeah, so it's definitely a little weird there.
And Chi manipulation. The series character designer noted how these talents were absorbed by Vamp, so Raiden and Snake should outshine them regardless. Speaking of Vamp, he seemingly gives a disguised Snake the work towards the beginning of the game. However, this is all an act according to the script.
I need a few more minutes. Pliskin is pretending to be worse off than he is. He intends to go separate ways from Raiden and keep him under surveillance to ascertain whether he can be trusted.
He's consciously limiting his abilities and feigning injuries as the mission calls for it. This is a clear showcase of Snake's talents as a deep cover agent, which would be well within reach given his training. Even in the MSX games, disguises were often used to great effect, with advancements in technology making him an even more effective impersonator. The younger soldier survives his own crucible, meant to recreate the events of MGS1, with the true antagonist of this series revealed in this game to be a cabal of AI networks already touting total control of the internet and all information. This near omniscient intelligence, which was built by those with intimate knowledge of Big Boss's adventures, instead shows the Shadow Moses incident, deeming it the most extreme mission one could undertake and the ultimate test to see if a single person could be manipulated by ultimately false stimuli as to foster what they would perceive to be genuine emotional responses. Even guides released after many of Big Boss's prequel events had been fleshed out still maintain this fact, proving that Foxhound, Snake, and the parameters therein are superior to anything Big Boss endured. They even chose Solid Snake as a template for Raiden as they deemed him to be the perfect warrior, not the boss, Venom Snake, or Big Boss. Regarding the Patriot AI, Ocelot successfully orchestrates and pulls the strings of various key players in the saga while managing to subvert the artificial intelligence, which controls every facet of civilian and military life at multiple points. This is key as the MGS2 Brady Games guide says Solid Snake's survival skills are equal to that of Ocelot's cunning, being his ability to achieve his goals through secrecy. I really would have to unpack the entire series to expose Ocelot's abilities as a double or triple agent. Just know that for every convoluted and Machiavellian plot twist, Snake's aptitude as a survivalist is just as complex. Kojima has made a few statements basically saying that every series of bosses as the games release get more powerful. However, we can't ignore the fact that he also thinks as a game designer and could as well be looking at it from the perspective of the challenge presented to the player, not necessarily canonically. Or it could even point to the fact that maybe Naked Snake, being a novice, is facing a bigger challenge or quote-unquote stronger opposition compared to the much more experienced and more powerful MGS1 Solid Snake against Foxhound. There are actually, again, just too many statements in the lore as well as from Kojima himself to say that MGS5 is stronger than MGS4 as an example. That aside, Raiden is forced to face down a multitude of new Metal Gear Ray units, which surpass Rex in every...
Wait. So let me get this straight. You're fine using Kojima's statements for characters being stronger at one point, but then when he says that every boss in the games is stronger than the previous, now we're having an issue with it because it doesn't fit your scaling chain?
No, we're having an issue with it because it causes what could be perceived as a contradiction in my scaling if it turns out he's talking about the games as they subsequently come out in release.
If that's what the statement's about, and you're just kind of like sweeping it under the rug a little bit, I feel like that's just a little disingenuous, given how much you put.
If we were to take this out of the power scaling vacuum and look at it just neutrally, yeah, that makes complete sense because Sahel First, when you're trying to do it on the hard difficulty, fucking sucks, and it's easily the hardest boss.
Yeah,
No, bar none.
No. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just funny.
Way. In MGS4, Solid Snake does pilot a damaged Rex and manages to stalemate Ocelot in a Ray unit. However, this is due to Otacon, Rex's designer, remotely allocating additional processing power to Rex while applying a combat program which Liquid never had the chance to take advantage of. Before he barely beats 25 of them, Snake is totally confident he can take them if Raiden would rather sit the rest of the mission out. This would also include the prior mentioned perfect clone of Big Boss, who sports an exosuit greater than that of Gray Fox's, and 2 blades with amplified cutting abilities resonating at high frequencies made of fallen meteorites. Solid is
No, hold on.
amplified cutting abilities resonating at high frequencies made of fallen
The sword you see was forged by the ancient. I can't pronounce that. From meteoric iron. There are only 3 of them in existence, and there was supposed to be another sword that could rival it. I was actually going to explain all that over the radio, but with so many other elements crammed in, the scene ended up being cut.
meteorites.
Yeah,
Solidus is
well,
a master
we know what they are.
swordsman.
They're 2 high frequency blades.
And after brief tutoring from Snake,
Yes.
manages to capitalize on the villain's blind spot as well as his suit's weak points. That comic, which is featured in every collection since 2012 while being suggested by Kojima, depicts Snake out-dueling Solidus via a single stab to the chest and a one-liner. During the 2006 100
Did you ever watch those or no? Because you have all the collections, right?
I didn't even know that existed.
We should retake a look at them
150th
later.
episode of Kojima's podcast/blog, he called this comic MGS2 as it should be. This, along with statements and his feelings surrounding Twin Snakes, called this comic MGS.
Well, Raiden, the version of MGS2 that should have been, where while Raiden is doing something, it probably depicts what Snake was doing behind the scenes. Wait, so then when does Solidus get stabbed? Because does that mean that during the events of the story, Solidus has a giant fucking sword wound when he fights fucking Raiden? That's pretty
As far as I'm aware, when we went through 2, there was never a cutscene where Snake fights Solidus one-on-one.
Well, I guess that they do meet up in a one-on-one fight at some point then.
To as it should be. This,
So that
along with
means
statements and his feelings
that there's a good chance that Raiden's not fighting a Solidus at his full power because he's been fucking ran through.
Yeah, we'll
surrounding
take a
Twin
look at that
Snakes,
later.
it really enforces Kojima's idea of equally valid interpretations.
If that's true, that
of his
can
games.
recontextualize Raiden scaling the Solidus.
I think it's best to look
Yeah.
at it like this. If Raiden had lost to Solidus, Snake could have easily dealt with him, which got an endorsement from Hideo himself.
Oh, wait, what?
Forces Kojima's idea of equally valid interpretations of these games. I think it's best to look at it like this. If Raiden had lost to Solidus, Snake could have easily dealt with him, which got an endorsement from Hideo himself.
Are you telling me in the comic Raiden doesn't beat Solidus? Snake has to come in and win the fight?
Are you telling me that in the comic, Raiden gets bitched out and then Solidus gets bitched out to Snake?
Gosh darn, that's kind of fucking lame.
Man, Raiden fucking has it rough throughout the entire series.
Alright, Solidus, you're not even in discussion anymore about whether or not you're better than Liquid, bro. It's just over.
Snake does lose to Fortune, a female merc wielding a handheld railgun, which is a miniaturized version of one of Metal Gear Rex's main weapons. Raiden and Solid Snake have been shown dodging these attacks left and right, which proves they are faster than attacks moving at 229 times faster than the speed of sound. That combined with a force field that nullifies any
Already
projectile.
established that they're like light speed. This doesn't mean anything.
It makes her unbeatable in Kojima's words.
A lot of viewers wonder why wasn't there a boss fight with Ocelot or a real fight with Fortune. Fortune's character is
No.
not going to be defeated. She is cursed with the ability to die. That's why the battle with her went the way it did. I understand players would love to fight Ocelot the most. That's why I intentionally did not include a battle with Ocelot. Not being able to fight the most hateful enemy increases your anger toward him. Alright, go ahead.
So the problem with bringing this up, and this kind of like reminded me of like when I was listening to yours and Mangler's video earlier today. It's like when you're scaling, you don't go backwards if you've already established something higher.
Yeah, that's true.
However, Snake has been running around performing his own series of missions here for an even longer period than Raiden, around 24 hours non-stop, which is only mildly longer than this video. He had an off-screen rematch with Olga, someone who may rival Gray Fox, and coupled with the comic, he had 2
Okay, but again, like, that's not impressive because Gray Fox isn't a threat anymore because of
He's not part of the
how-
discussion. This would be like if you
Because
brought
of
up the
how
boss
you-
again.
Because of how you set up the scaling chain you provide, beating characters on par with earlier characters is not impressive.
bouts with a magic knife
Again,
master
this feels like
vampire
if
before going
somebody would have proofread this for him,
Wait.
this could have
hold on.
been. I reckon this video could have been so streamlined, so much better, and you could have cut.
Kyle, you gotta watch the comic, bro. He
coupled
beats
with
Vamp in
the comic, he had 2 bouts with a magic knife master vampire before going
Oh my fucking god!
He fuck. You know what? You know what, Kyle? Maybe Snake be better than Raiden's not so far fetched after all. Maybe we need the comic from MGR to confirm that Snake from the dead could beat Raiden.
Fuck me.
coupled with the
Yeah, but like,
he had two
look-
bouts with a magic knife
Yeah,
master.
but like, as I was saying before, like, if somebody would have just like proofread this for him, I reckon there's a timeline where you could have made this video way more streamlined. It would have been way more friendly to watch, and you wouldn't have to keep jumping backwards and forwards trying to fucking like scale shit.
He could
Because
have
he's trying to put shit in as the timeline is in, but the problem with doing that is not all the feats that you show later in the timeline matter when you've already established better stuff earlier.
Yeah.
Vampire before going toe-to-toe with scores of elite exoskeleton amped samurai, and he still managed to remain unwounded after his bout with Fortune, who may have genuine luck powers as well. It wouldn't be out of the question for the saga.
Oh, please tell me 4 has a comic where instead of Raiden.
What do you mean May have genuine luck powers? She literally proves it. What the fuck is this May shit?
Also, like,
Unfortunately,
please tell me 4 has a comic where instead of Raiden spinning around the geckos, it's fucking Snake.
Hold on, maybe we haven't got that remaster.
5 years later, in 2014, Snake's prime would be cut short due to his accelerated aging programmed into him before his birth. At the same time, the old hero could take advantage of this new age of warfare, being outfitted with the Octo Camo sneaking suit to amplify his strength and regenerative abilities, with Big Boss even having a kind of healing factor back in the 60s.
The strategy contained this guide, namely the walkthrough chapters that lead through the missions, focus on providing tips and tactics for taking down the guards that stand between you and your next objective. If an enemy discovers you in this game, it's not the end of the world, thanks to Snake's damage, resistance, and regenerative abilities.
This Octo Camo is not only an evolution beyond Raiden's sneaking suit, but by the late 2000s, these armors were considered exoskeletons, sharing technology with Gray Fox. Solid as Snake's power suit was greater than Fox's, with Kojima and Shinkawa calling the Octo Camo an evolution of Solidus's armor. So not only is Snake up to over 3 times stronger, but on top of having his potential unlocked, it also amps his motor functions and contracts to nullify damage. Even that of Raiden's high-frequency sword, which as revealed in Rising, shrinks electracts to nullify damage. Even that of Raiden's high-frequency...
Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this shit? Because we went for the fucking high-frequency blade.
So you can't just chop him in half with your sword. Your suit uses the same technology. So the muscle suits also can't be cut in half by the high-frequency blade. Love that.
Sword, which as revealed in Rising, shrinks electron clouds at the Planck scale. To something at that level, a single atom would be a trillion times larger than the
Do you want to quickly go over why taking shit from Kevin may not be the best thing, while Doctor and Boris, who are way more knowledgeable on the blade, contradicts that?
No. Because before we do that, I want him to finish everything he's gonna say for the blade. Because this might just be a real quick section, or it might be like 5 minutes. So first,
okay,
we wait for him to finish.
Observable universe is to us. These blades don't just cut matter like a normal sword, but break it down at such a level it's impossible to fathom. Snake also later on gets a mask of...
Okay, cool. So, right off the bat, Kevin's not really an expert on the technology. I think he even openly admits in that dialogue that he's kind of dumbing it down for Raiden to understand. But Kevin's not an expert on it. Some guy would have told Kevin what the sword does, and it was probably a summary of a summary, but Kevin himself is not an expert on it. The Doctor provides more detailed explanations about it and what it can or cannot cut, because there's a lot of shit the sword can't cut. Because the sword can't cut through everything. In fact, most enemies in MGR can't be cut in half by the sword. Now, I didn't realize the muscle suits also can't be cut in half by the sword, but so that would also the sword doesn't really cut on the Planck level. It does shrink the electron clouds, but that's more of an electricity situation. So if you don't really conduct electricity, the sword doesn't really cut through you. The sword is very weird in its feats, but it doesn't cut through everything. So the Planck statement kind of doesn't really matter. Especially because the people who wield it always seem to be superhuman anyway, so you can't even tell if the sword's cutting it or if they're cutting it through brute force.
It's also one of those weird situations with the sword because the more you go through everything in MGR, Doctor basically says, like verbatim, you can't cut through the enemy shield, you can't cut through Metal Gears straight away, you have to damage the armor first, you have to do this and that. The sword becomes way less impressive when you stop cherry picking statements that sound impressive in a vacuum and you actually contextualize them all together.
I mean, the fact that the sword. Wait, hold on. The sword can't cut the muscle suit in half. Snake stabs Solidus with the sword. So again, that's just an example of what does the sword actually do versus what the person uses the fucking blunt, basically blade for. Obviously, the blade's not blunt, but you get what I'm saying.
The same material, meaning by the end of MGS4,
I guess you could be like a real, like, I guess you could have like a real stick up your ass and basically say he stabbed him, he didn't cut him. Because it's not a slicing action.
at the plank scale from head to toe. Speaking of
No, that
blades,
doesn't even work because fucking Raiden cuts Solidus's armor.
You right. Yeah, again. So what does the blade... Is it the blade doing it, or is it the person wielding the sword brute forcing it? Okay, but hang on. He said something about plank.
the end of MGS4, he should be impervious to assaults at the plank scale from head to toe. Speaking of
Okay.
I
Again,
totally
to
disagree with
clarify,
that.
the blade does not attack you at the plank level. It fucks with the electron clouds. The sword isn't cutting you on that level. So no, that's not how that would work. That's also assuming the fucking suits are... No, it's fine.
No, like let's go even further and explain like the reason why Armstrong can't be cut by Raiden's blade is because it's anti-vibrational, which means if you can nullify vibrations or if you can fuck with like shockwaves, the sword's not going to do anything to you.
The sword has a lot of weaknesses that it can't really get through. It's still a sharp sword, but it's not fucking with the atoms in the or like at the plank level the way people assume it is.
There is a very good argument to be made that if Raiden was to fight any electric user would just nullify the blade via their power. And I'm talking like Cole, I'm talking Eneru, I'm talking like anyone you want to use, because electricity would fuck with that.
Yeah, 100%.
blades, he himself has a stun knife, which is called the ultimate hand-to-hand weapon in the game itself.
Like,
meaning it likely blades,
we're
he
harping
himself-
on about this, but this is one of those scenarios where Metal Gear fans who will try and take everything that they possibly can will take certain statements about the high frequency blade, but they won't take everything. Especially when you find out that Kevin is not a reputable source because he's basically just the market man.
Yeah, he would not know how it works. Someone would have had to tell him that. But hang on. He's about to claim the knife's better than the sword.
As a stun knife, which is called the ultimate hand-to-hand weapon in the game itself, meaning it likely surpasses the overall effectiveness of high-frequency blades. The
No.
Look, I'm willing to harp on the high frequency blade and its abilities, but fuck. This is kind of why people claim Hyperbull for a lot of shit. But the knife combines the ability of a knife with the knockout power of a stun gun. It doesn't even have a statement on par with the high frequency blade, and it's not even a good statement. Fuck! Do not make me rep the high frequency blade, please. Look, I'm not gonna fight. I'm not gonna fight on this one, but just okay.
in the game itself, meaning it likely surpasses the overall effectiveness of high-frequency blades. The Octo Camo also mimics the texture and temperature of any other material.
Before we move on, because I know people are gonna get sick to death that we keep bringing this up, but how long did you spend researching the high-frequency blade before you came to the decision?
What, that couldn't cut through everything?
No, like, because I got you all of the statements for it, which was like fucking 40 different scans.
So
how long did it take for you to research like plank level cloud particles and all that sort of shit? And you just came, because I remember getting a call from you one day when I was at work on the tools, and you were so irate and pissed off of what you found out.
So that I remember that day because I was really looking through. I was going through everything to figure out what the sword actually does. Because a lot of the terms used for the blade were not easily like acquirable. I had to go looking for electron clouds, which electron clouds I don't even think were a term when I looked them up. It was atomic clouds, I think, or like I think it was molecular clouds, I think was the term it actually went with. And then slowly I found the electron cloud after going through that. I think I did find electron clouds eventually. But it was like it was like I think I want to say like 4 to 5 hours of me crossing my my I's and T's. I was there for a while checking everything to make sure I wasn't wrong, to make sure how fucking ceramic armor worked, to understand how nanotube carbon fiber worked, all these fucking things to just come to the conclusion that if you just resist electricity, you'll resist the high frequency blade's ability to fuck with your molecules. And then it got worse because of Armstrong. It got worse because of ceramics.
It got worse because of the actual like Metal Gears, which are just thick metal.
It got to the point where I look at people who use the Planck statement as like a statement that it cuts through everything, and I'm just like, your own game disagrees with you. Your first boss fight disagrees with you.
Doctor disagrees with you. Doctor literally says that it can't cut through everything like a miracle blade.
Fucking Doctor flat out says it can't cut through everything because it's not a plasma sword. And I'm like, how did this happen? How badly did you fuckers have to cherry pick this game to ignore every fucking counter to this position? Now, to be fair,
Doctor is the most blatant one that we remember. I'm pretty sure Boris had some pretty damning statements too, because Boris and Doctor were the ones that matter.
They were the ones who would say, you can't cut through this until you do this. I think Boris is like, you can't cut through their shield, you have to weaken it first, I think is what Boris would say to you about a bunch of enemies. But
I think he says that also about
MGR section.
about Sundown and Shields, doesn't he?
Yes. But that one, to be fair, that's just because of the explosion either knocking you back or the explosion causes a shockwave that prevents you from fucking with its molecules. But, okay.
No, but I want people to know just before we move on. Me and Zim basically had like an entire like Excel spreadsheet of shit that it could not cut. And I mean like a literal Excel spreadsheet of shit that we were cross-referencing that it should and should not be able to cut.
Yeah.
We came to the decision that it has to be right in strength, because if it's not, then this blade, by all rights, shouldn't be able to cut through like 90% of the shit in the game, because 90% of the shit in the game can't conduct electricity.
It's also just that, like, and because someone will probably watch this later on when I make this public and be like, oh, well, that's not what it says. Yeah, it basically is when you read the statement, but in its entirety. Also, they don't give you the whole statement in its entirety for what he says, because usually, because they leave out the vibrations messing with it more often than not. I think he did show it though, but let's continue, because there is an MGR section. So maybe he'll say something about statement. There's an MGR statement right at the very end. So there's something about MGR here. So we're going to continue.
For Red, adding to Snake's innate
We're
talents
almost
as a
there.
stealth operative. He's also given the
I will
solid
just
eye
plug the
and
video
eye
right now. If you want to know more in depth why we think the high frequency blade works the way it does, go on Zim's channel and you'll be able to find it if you go back through the actual videos, not the live streams.
I will pin it when this video comes out publicly. Just remind me.
I don't believe you. You have the mind of a sieve.
Night vision and thermals, while analyzing the smells, sounds, and movements of people, and even machines, and integrating them into Snake's already superhuman spiritual senses. Speaking of smells, and for the sake of being totally comprehensive, Solid Snake is unbothered by hiding inside of a dumpster. He's also finally allowed himself to use CQC. This is also coupled by the fact that this is Snake at the apex of his experience. He's come a long way from a Green Beret rookie Foxhound agent, culminating in CQC being totally instinctive to him, and he even remarks that training further would be of no use to him. Which, all of this combined with Kojima calling him more than just an old man, leads me to believe that he is all around more capable than he was in MGS2 after stacking all of this insane equipment.
I've scaled enough characters to know this, and I've got a couple of friends who are in the martial arts and shit. When you're professionally trained in how to fight, if somebody challenges you, you instinctively just fall back into what you know how to do. That's not as impressive as you think it is.
All right, let's continue.
that, as usual, he carries around many medicinal aids, such as nanomachine stimulants to offset his disabilities, and then some. By now in the timeline, much of the training methods and weaponry only whispered of in the world of Black Ops has become commonplace, with the baseline for the armed forces all receiving conditioning greater than that of VR, which mostly honed that of Raiden and was at one time reserved for the best among Foxhound. Snake also dealt with scores of exosuit sporting Haven troopers who are a cut above standard forces, and are all connected via the AI network to amplify their teamwork and strategy. Yet, with CQC and the Octo Camo, they are all no match for old Snake, who is being hunted by Snakehound, an all-female hit team leagues above the competition while sporting weaponry surpassing that of the series' prior bosses. In this game, Snake does make a distinction between his own skills and that of Big Boss, wherein he says that in terms of tracking or being a scout, his father was more so a specialist in that field. Now, Solid Snake, of course, via Foxhound training and the CIA, should be very capable of tracking people down. After Raiden briefly describes his newest training under an Alaskan scout, Snake does successfully navigate through multiple pathways to find his target. Later on in the game, he as well stalks a lifetime child soldier and tails him back to his home base, with him being none the wiser. He's also able to counter-snipe a exosuit railgun wielding upgraded version of Sniper Wolf in the middle of a snowstorm. He actually as well tanks a shot from this railgun, which earlier in MGS2 was stated to be able to kill Raiden in a single hit, which basically means that old Snake from
That was Fortune's railgun, so I don't know if... I mean, I guess you would just scale railgun to railgun, but I don't know if that's entirely fair.
MGS4 would also one-shot Solidus. Earlier than all of this, he was able to hunt down MGS4 would also kill Raiden in a single hit, which basically means that old Snake from MGS4 would also one-shot Solidus. Earlier than all of this, he was able to hunt down and detain another trained soldier using Snake's very own Octo Camo technology, proving that Snake can actually counter his own stealth technologies. Vamp also makes his return here better than ever due to a combination of power armor over half his body, with much of one's striking strength originating from their ankles and then hips, plus a connection to the Sons of the Patriot AI system, which would grant him intuitive training while boosting his concentration and mitigating his pain, on top of his Wolverine-level healing factor. This results in his ability to stalemate, or at the very least push the now cyborg Raiden to the brink of death multiple times. This new ninja can face down hordes of smaller and weaker Metal Gears, but more impressively, he holds back an entire submarine while wounded and missing an arm. Not only does this mean he can hold back over 6 billion pounds, or over 3.4 million tons, about 10 times more than what Big Boss could lift, but by denting this Arsenal Gear warship, he may be affecting a weapon greater than any thus far seen in the series. In the MGS3 Countdown book, Arsenal Gear is described as not only the biggest but strongest weapon of all, and it brought down much of New York City without a scratch in MGS2. So Raiden putting this big of a dent in it while just standing there down a limb likely makes Vamp and Raiden more durable than the likes of Metal Gear Rex and Ray, which should already be magnitudes stronger than the nuke-proof Metal Gears of the 70s. And yes, Snake would benefit from this, as he
I
manages
don't
to
have
put
an issue with
down
that. I
Vamp.
think that's fine.
Hang on.
Metal Gears of the 70s. And yes, Snake would benefit from this, as he manages to put down Vamp multiple times before kicking his legs out from under him, putting him in a chokehold, and using nanomachine suppressants to cancel out his healing factor. Some might remember how Vamp was seeking death against Snake, but he felt the same way towards Raiden. You might be thinking, how can this be? Snake's using bullets from an assault rifle to put down a well beyond nuke-proof meta-human? Now is the time to discuss the fact that even guns and the like, which appear to be identical to our own, actually benefit from the sci-fi nature of the series. During MGS3, radio conversations and Kojima himself revealed that weapons from guns to nuclear bombs are prototypes beyond what our history had to offer. Peace Walker also features characters pointing out how a weapon actually has innate potential that gets drawn out the more they're used. And with wormhole teleportation during the 80s, or super Gundam building geniuses in our heroes' corners, it would actually be less credible to think their armaments aren't souped up. Clearly by now we can all...
Okay, but so the problem is that...
Okay, so I don't think he understands. I don't think he understands that this concession that he makes shoots his entire premise of the last hour in the foot. He's basically just admitted the characters themselves don't fucking scale here whatsoever. It's their weapons.
Yeah, but it's also just like, not every weapon you get in these games is the prototypes, or a lot of them are the common soldier weapons. And even in MGS4, you get weapons from Devin. Yeah, so he just sells you weapons. They're not modified, as far as we know, to be more powerful. Now, granted, if the position is just that all weapons in Metal Gear are more powerful than their standard ones, we're really going to have a conversation about the RPGs scaling above nukes right now.
Well,
so let's hear it.
I think that's exactly where he's going to have to go with this, because you don't really have a choice, because that's the only concession that you can make for how characters like Snake would be able to scale to
Yeah.
stuff above like Peace Walker.
Yeah.
Is you'd have to say that the weapons are just far and above where they should be realistically, which is fine. But if you're going to acknowledge that position, then you also don't get to still claim that they physically scale to that level.
Well, let's see what he says.
Armaments aren't souped up. Clearly by now we can all tell that the Metal Gear universe is not limited by the terms of our own. It's probably also worth describing Snake's wider arsenal, which especially by MGS4, or the sort of video game trope of him just having all of the stuff in his pockets at once, means he has access to pretty much every variety of handgun, assault rifle, sniper rifle. He picks up that same railgun I was talking about before, and literally can just pull it out of thin air in cutscenes. This railgun just takes out scores of Metal Gear Geckos, which had been prior shown restraining the new upgraded Cyborg Raiden. And again, Snake just walks off and attack from that. He even gets some pretty exotic weaponry, such as emotive grenades and ammunition, which basically subject anyone hit by or affected by them to insane rage or fear or just a complete conniption fit. He gets an old-timey rifle, which has a chance of just generating a massive tornado. He also somehow
Sam Fisher
receives
could
a
fucking
solar
never.
gun, which shoots raw sunlight. It should very likely move at the speed of light as well. He gets
What?
the Mantis and
I guess
I'm
we're
sorry,
just-
what?
shoots raw sunlight. It
He's
should
got a solar powered gun, Kyle.
very likely move at the speed of light as
Oh,
well.
that's
He gets
sweet. I didn't even know that
Sorrow
existed.
dolls, which can affect spirits as well as any living thing with nanomachines. Basically puppeting.
I
them
don't
around
own
until they
4, fuck
die.
off.
This would go for basically 99%.
I own
of this
all the
entire
others
fictional
but 4.
Alright, let's hear what he has to say.
puppeting them around until they die.
Almost
This
done.
would go for
6
basically
minutes.
99% of this entire fictional universes, as well as any other fictional character you can think of who possesses nanomachines of any kind. It goes without saying that as well as any they
hold on.
die. This well as any living thing with nanomachines, basically puppeting them around until they die. This would go for basically 99% of this entire fictional universes, as well as any other fictional character you can think of.
No,
That's
no,
not,
you would.
not how that works.
Yeah, that is a very broad position. Not all nanomachines are built the same, for number one, but also considering the fact that you claim this universe is an arms race that always keeps evolving, why would you assume that newer nanomachines are vulnerable to the same weaknesses older nanomachines had?
Why would I assume that the puppet could control Armstrong's nanomachines, which are stated in the codexes to be the newest and most
Well, it gets the
improved form of
Mantis
nanomachines? And on top of that, if you're going to make that broad statement that it should work on nanomachines in other verses,
Dolls, which can
that is going to be a massive burden that you're going to have to prove.
So, okay, no. So what it says here is the doll you just picked up lets you manipulate anybody who's got nanomachines in them. So he might be arguing for more of a
it
supernatural
should
thing.
very likely, as
But
well
even
as
then,
any living
not
thing
entirely
with
fair.
nanomachines, basically puppeting them around until they die. This would go for basically 99% of this entire fictional universes, as well as any other fictional character you can think of who possesses nanomachines of any kind. It goes without saying that, as in the case with Link or Batman, he's just a walking
So
armory. If not,
you
even more
understand
than
that by that definition, he's kind of saying Snake could fuck with Tony who has the nanomachines too, right?
No. It's a yeah. No, I understand. It's a massive no limits fallacy. Because again, you're already making a massive assumption it would work on someone in the same series, unless like with more advanced nanomachines. No, it's ridiculous.
Also showcase an interesting ability in this game where fighting a crazy person can actually cure them of their insanity. Big Boss and Solid Snake have been described and shown to have this kind of superhuman charisma, basically bordering on mind control, and I think this is another example of that. In Snake's final fight, possibly of his entire life, we get perhaps the greatest display of willpower, as after a day's worth globetrotting onslaught against tougher odds than ever, Snake crossed through a hallway, blasting him with microwaves. This isn't just a matter of raw energy transfer. If he was just a mortal man, all the water in his body would boil as his organs and then skin burn from the inside out. Yet Snake survives and then commits to a climactic CQC battle with Liquid and
all of
Ocelot's
it-
fusion.
Would all of it like boil when he's wearing basically the highest tech suit?
I feel like not really. I feel like we're kind of underselling
And all the
value of the suit now. Again, we overhype things in one point, but then we undervalue them at another point to make it sound
his
more
body
impressive.
would boil as his organs and then skin burn from the inside out. Yet Snake survives and then commits to a climactic
Also, regarding that climactic fight, we're really gonna ignore how it took several fucking needles worth of fucking nanomachines to get his ass up.
CQC battle with Liquid and Ocelot's fusion. His Octo Camo is mostly burned away, so his CQC is likely nerfed. Ocelot rivaled Venom's
Okay, so
Snake decades ago, not even mentioning his Foxhound training, but he is now empowered by the strength and skills of Liquid Snake, while also sporting a cyborg arm capable of denting an arsenal gear, and used it with
So this
Mercy
is something
as
that
he
needs
saw
to be addressed now. It's like, this is not
arm capable
quite
of
fair
denting an
because
arsenal gear,
Ocelot is
and used it
naked.
with
Technically, Snake is still wearing, while it is damaged, he is still wearing a suit of armor.
Yeah, but no, it's damaged, so it's not. It automatically just loses all
without
stats
mercy as he sought to truly test himself against the final.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that just because my bulletproof vest, it has slight holes in it, that if you were to punch me, it'd be like punching my skin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, how do you, obviously you should know this, Kyle. Come on now. 10 digital tyrants zero created as he knew system essential patriots he endeavored to destroy them. His behavior in Ubisoft for them was a devious and elaborate. Having achieved his aims, he engaged Snake in brutal hand-to-hand combat, perhaps relishing one last opportunity to test his prowess against the progeny of his great friend and idol Big Boss, but more importantly choosing death and Yusan's peace as his reward for ushering
Big
in
Boss,
era.
with Snake being the last man standing. This is truly impressive because much earlier in the game, with far less fatigue, better weapons, etc., Snake was effortlessly dominated by this same foe. Yet now, with barely any armor to help him, burns on his skin, and possibly even internal organs, he comes out on
Both
top. This
dying
that,
at the
not to discount
same
his skills,
time.
but it was Snake's spirit that allowed him to seize victory.
Again, it was his spirit, not all the drugs we had to pump into him to get his ass up after the after the microwave scene, Snake is done. He's fucking out of it. Ocelot stabs him like 3 times with a needle, and then a 4th time before the fucking fight starts.
There really isn't much to glean from Snake's final reunion with Big Boss.
Then they both
David doesn't even
proceed
have it.
to keep doping each other with nanomachines to keep the fight going.
Also, technically, if I understand correctly, Foxdie would have already been killing Liquid, or I guess Liquid Snake, technically. Again, Foxdie's pretty weird in how it
His
works.
Octo Camo. He's been through hell. He doesn't even really want to fight Big Boss, which is evident per the fact that he doesn't light him up on sight. But after a final blessing from his father, Solid Snake had earned his rest. Yet, life moved on after Snake's passing, but didn't manage to outshine his legend. After all, Kojima said that Raiden was intended to be in keeping with the trope of surpassing one's predecessor, but he admitted that it didn't take, which is why Solid Snake remained the hero of MGS4. One's predecessor, but he admitted that it didn't take, which is why Solid Snake remained the hero of MGS4. However, in 2013,
Okay, but obviously that'd be in reference to like the player's reaction.
Platinum
to him.
Studios would work alongside Kojima Productions.
And that's more
to
due
create
to
a
his fuck up of lying to his audience.
Yeah, 100%.
spin-off starring Cyborg Raiden set 4 years after MGS4. Per the current state of the franchise, the 2023 Master Book places Metal Gear Rising alongside Portable Ops as connected to the saga. Kojima had mixed opinions, calling it a non-canon alternate take at one time, while also saying it's still in the Metal Gear universe. Yuji Korikato, a producer for the series and seemingly the current captain of the ship, also said it was canon outright. While the game's writer Etsu Tamari, who also co-wrote Peace Walker and Metal Gear Solid 5 under Kojima, said he wrote the game in an attempt to stay in line with the broader saga, while Kojima Productions had total control of the narrative. Make of that what you will. I say it's just a canon spin-off. Again, if someone hadn't heard much of what I've already said and thought Snake was just some peak human spy, they'd be totally excused to think he'd be nothing to the cyborgs of Rising's era. But given what we know now, it's pretty easy to accept Raiden's statement that Snake is still unstoppable. Some people might see this as bias, but Raiden is a combat genius, walked in his shoes, and saw Snake save the world firsthand multiple times. He might know what he's capable of more than anyone. More to the point, Jetstream Sam was a normal mercenary at a time when Snake would have been the best, strongest, most skilled soldier ever. And with a mere exosuit
It
actually
is
compared
weird
to Snake,
because Sam is the least augmented out of all the Desperados and Raiden, and he's able to fuck up Raiden super badly, and even like
Camo in Rising's
like,
art book, Sam managed to
even
impress
argue
Rising.
that he could
So-
match him.
So
Because this is also something that needs to be brought up, is if it wasn't for the fact that Monsoon kept provoking him, Monsoon would have beaten Raiden.
No. But like, I mean, like, well, that's correct. That's not really the issue at hand here. The issue at hand here is he's arguing that because canonically Sam would have been around during Snake's era doing the shit he did, and because Sam's not really all that much more amped, He's arguing that Sam is an example that Snake would still be superior to the people of Metal Gear Rising.
Normal mercenary at a time when Snake would have been
very
Hang on.
heavily disagree.
Well, let's hear the whole argument again. It's only like 2 minutes.
Someone hadn't heard much of what I've already said and thought Snake was just some peak human spy, they'd be totally excused to think he'd be nothing to the cyborgs of Rising's era. But given what we know now, it's pretty easy to accept Raiden's
But it's not like that. He knows what's right. He gets it done. Period.
statement
No one
that
stop
Snake
him.
is still unstoppable. Some people might see this as bias, but Raiden is a combat genius, walked in his shoes, and saw Snake save the world firsthand multiple times. He might know what he's capable of more than anyone. More to the point, Jetstream Sam was a normal mercenary at a time when Snake would have been the best, strongest, most skilled soldier ever. And with a mere exosuit actually compared to Snake's Octo Camo in Rising's art book, Sam managed to press Rising's bloodlusted final boss as he went Super Saiyan God. Sam proves that a normal man plus an exoskeleton is all it takes to compete with and nearly defeat the strongest of characters in Revengeance.
Okay, let's be clear here. That sword was doing a lot more of the heavy lifting, but you know, whatever.
And there's really no way to say
That sword was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and let's not lie and try and say that the few vehicles that Armstrong was able to absorb electricity from to power up his nanomachines is nowhere near the power that he got when he absorbed Excelsis.
Not only that, but the game also confirms that Sam's sword is superior to the other swords on top of the shotgun blast that gave Sam the speed necessary to cut Armstrong's nanomachines. Also, Sam took a massive beating during that fight.
Let's also not forget the only reason Sam won that fight is because he managed to see that the nanomachines radiate from his heart. And so it was all about a matter of timing, being able to get to the flesh before the nanomachines could.
Yeah, but in his position, he would argue Snake would just do that basically reflexively.
Exosuit or anything, if not worse than Snake and all of his equipment. Raiden does beat Sam and Armstrong, sure, but everything points to Snake being able to outshine even those displays. He's simply more skilled on.
What about the actual feats they produce? Like, even the Lightspeed feats, like, there's a better Lightspeed feat in MGR than there is in Metal Gear Solid if you go with Blade Time. Now, if you don't want to include Blade Time, I mean, fine, but like...
Stoppable, should resist high-frequency blades, has a wider arsenal, and has perfect counters for nanomachines, which pretty much every Rising character has coursing through their veins. This lines up with Kurikato saying how Raiden in Rising is only just now comparable to Snake, considering feats...
I'm going to disagree on his position of the nanomachines because it's an older... It's a newer model, so you shouldn't be able to work on newer models because that's how technology works.
Hang on, so it's like an impression of the character maybe effeminate. Now with the Vengeance, we feel that Raiden has stepped up to the plate and now he's the main character and he's now comparable to Snake. In reference to being the main character. Yeah, this is more of a character statement and growth as a person.
It's now comparable to Snake, considering feats shown by Gray Fox, Big Boss, Vamp, and with Snake superior to all of them, there's really no way to refute Raiden's statement. In terms of pure numbers, there isn't even a single feat in Rising that surpasses some shown throughout the saga. Raiden can observe lasers moving in slow motion, which would make him as fast as over 42,000 times the speed of light at most. Snake would just scale this as well.
Hold on.
Make him as fast as over 40.
No, because he says that like he can slow down his perception. No. Let's be very clear here about what the guidebook says. He says that he's slowing down the flow of time.
Yeah.
I don't care how much of a pedantic ass you want to be about this. It does say slow down time.
No, by his position, he would accept it being a time slow rather than the speed feat because he accepts everything at face value in the guidebooks.
Okay, then this is not a speed feat.
So it's not only that, he knows what's... that would just support the position that Snake would scale to the MGR cast.
Just scaled to this as well. He could already dodge lasers well before his peak and outclasses a couple of teleporters such as G and the Skulls, and he keeps up with Screaming Mantis and MGS4. In the Japanese version, a couple of teleporters such as G and the Skulls, and he keeps up with Screaming Mantis and MGS4.
Okay, hang on.
If you're gonna have a scan, don't have the scan be up for like 0.5 seconds.
Such as G and the Skulls, and he keeps up with Screaming Mantis and MGS4.
No, even at the normal speed, it's still super fucking fast.
Put it on like 0.5 speed.
Orders such as G and the Skulls, skulls, and he keeps up with Screaming Mantis and MGS4.
You still can't read!
Why aren't you pausing it once it comes up?
I am!
And he keeps up with Screaming Mantis and MGS4.
Is this what purgatory feels like?
Okay, here we go. Here we go. This is readable. This is readable. The attack uses teleportation combined with a scythe, and suddenly vanishing, he can reappear anywhere and the command center and strike at Snake with a scythe and a changed attack. If he teleports close to Snake, counterattacking becomes extremely difficult. Okay.
In the Japanese version of Rising, Snake's soul is even transmitted into a sword and mentors rided mid-combat against cyborg opponents. In a similar vein,
Wait, what?
transmitted in up with Screaming Mantis and MGS4. In the Japanese version of Rising, Snake's soul is even
Clip it.
Oh,
Let's see if it actually says that.
Hang on.
and he keeps up with Screaming Mantis and MGS4. In the Japanese
Okay, so this isn't in the... This isn't in the actual... Google Translate, hang on. Images, paste from clipboard. The Mysterious One sword was created using the latest spiritual technology to pass on the words of the legendary hero Solid Snake to future generations. It emits various sounds depending on how it is swung.
Yeah, so no, it's not his spirit, it's basically just recordings of what he says to motivate you.
Oh, hang on. Let's copy the text and go to DeepL just to make sure. Paste. A Mysterious One sword created using the latest spiritual technology to pass down the words of legendary hero Solid Snake to the future generations. Various audio clips played depending on how it is swung. Yeah, no, that's not
Fucking lie.
This is a lightsaber. This is like those toy lightsabers you get that make sounds when you swing them. Yeah, no, fuck out of here.
There's a couple of teleporters, such as
You're better
G
than
and the
this.
Skulls, and he keeps up with Screaming Mantis.
No, that's a fucking blatant lie.
In the Japanese version of Rising, Snake's soul is even transmitted into a sword and mentors rided mid-combat against cyborg opponents. In a similar vein as Sam just canonically being a weaker soldier than Snake once you line up the timeline and the statements, the super metal seen throughout the cyborgs in Rising also existed during Snake's tenure, so the gap between Rising and the main saga, especially Snake's heyday,
He's been
might
through
just
the
be
codexes for Doc.
the gap between
So you would know
Rising
all this
and
bullshit about
main
the high
saga,
frequency
especially
blade.
Snake's heyday might just be non-existent when you really think about it. When
Hang on, so
against cyborg opponents. In a similar vein
if
as
I
Sam
remember
just canonically being a
correctly-
weaker soldier than Snake once you line up the timeline and the statements, the super metal seen throughout the cyborgs in Rising also existed during
yeah. So the thing is a lot. While that technology did exist, it only existed for the Patriots at that point, as it does point out here.
Snake's 10 years.
So it's very unclear how much Snake would have interacted with that prior to MGS4.
So the gap between Rising and the main saga, especially Snake's heyday, might just be non-existent when you really think about it. When everything is said and done, I hope you all learn that Solid Snake is truly a force to be reckoned with, and could very well outclass many of the competition as far as martial arts, marksmanship, super senses, combat speeds far faster than
So to be honest, I'm
light
hang on,
and durability
I'll end
rivaling
this.
forces such as natural disasters, all backed up by supreme.
My big takeaway from this is
In fact,
he's a very good fighter,
according to
but
Fortnite,
everything
he is
else,
unrivaled
you
in
jump
cover
backwards and
ops with
forwards
that
way
game
too
featuring
fucking
John
much.
Wick, canon
Fucking
versions
fairy
of
chain.
Hang on. He's using
Captain
Fortnite
America,
skills.
Black Widow, Daredevil, and even the main comic book Batman. And in Super Smash Bros., his classic mode shows him defeating Master Hand, who at least transcends all of Pokemon, including the progenitors of space and time. With all that said, thanks for watching.
Okay, so I don't have any issue. So it was a good video, good editing, a lot of good information, a lot of repeating, but fuck. What was
It was very bloated. It was nice to look at, but it was bloated.
It would be a lot easier to know where you put the character if you didn't randomly throw the feats all, because this video needed like a quick little section at the end to just summarize, all right, so this is where Snake is and all of his stats, and I don't know, maybe summarize overall the skills you mentioned throughout the video, because I understand the whole point of the video is to provide it, but you watch this whole video and I'm like, okay, so they're light speed, they got a bunch of skill statements, and like that's about it.
And from
I couldn't
what
even
I
tell
could
you
get-
where A Peter's supposed to sit at because you threw so many fucking scaling chains
Well-
out there.
well, no, it's not even that. It's like he tells you that physically he should be like maybe mountain level, being stronger than atomic bombs, but then he walks that right the fuck back by saying like, well, the weapons in the series are way stronger. So it's like, okay, so you just walks back that position.
It good evidence, a lot of weird assumptions, a lot of moments where his own logic is failing him, so he has to go through it. I will say though, while personally I'm still not 100% convinced on the MGR position because very clearly those characters just weren't created at that point, and you know, give that one as you will. I can respect the position. I will say this has been the best video to explain why someone would actually think Snake could fuck MGR up. So I will give credit to Crisis on that one. He presented a very convincing argument to at least explain
I don't
why
believe he
Snake would
fucking.
fail.
I don't think he presented a convincing argument whatsoever. Don't be fucking generous.
Motherfucker, I'll kill you.
Don't be a fence. Don't be a fence sitter cocksucker. Just be honest.
Fence sitter. He fucking provided enough of a scale.
No, you're the fucking fence sitter.
I'm not.
No, you're the
saying-
fence sitter.
I'm being honest. This is the best argument I've heard for why Snake would beat MGR.
It's not good.
Bruh. Well, at least he provided like the sources, or not the sources technically. He provided at least all the scans for most of his claims.
Let's be very clear here. What this video needed. This video needed someone to pull him aside, look at the script, and tell him, focus this. I know you want to go through each game in chronological order and put down every feat. If you're gonna do that, don't call it how strong is Solid Snake. Call it how strong is Metal Gear. That would have been a way better title.
No,
But if you're just doing Solid Snake, what you should have done is streamline this a lot more. The CQC and skill stuff, even if you had to jump through all the games to get it, just for that one section, should have been 5-10 minutes tops, and then you start going into the scaling. This is a 20 to 30 minute video that has so much bloat in it that your intended audience is going to get lost. They're not going to know. They're going to walk away from this not knowing what your position is, where they scale. The only thing that they'll confidently walk away with is that Snake is a really, really good fighter.
Yeah, because even the speed scaling, like, you randomly throw the MGR feat at the very end, so the Snake scale to that then, or does he just scale to like just vaguely above FTL? Like, well, what would that just be the position you have for Snake then? No one's walking away from this fully knowing what the correct stats are because he kind of kept, as Kyle pointed out, like sort of ham-fisting information as it is relevant to the game itself, which ultimately kind of muddled the water on the scaling. But yeah, no, Snake is definitely very skilled. No, he is absolutely right. That is a massive takeaway I'm taking from this, is that Snake's skill feats are a lot more abundant than I would have expected. Actually, you want to know what the funny thing is? There's an MGS4 skill statement for Liquid Ocelot and Snake about them like predicting each other's movements and being perfectly equal, but he never brought it up for some reason. I wonder how that one didn't make it on the cutting. I wonder how that one got cut, but like fucking reiterating the Green Berets, I think like 3 different times was fair game.
Yeah, but like as people who also like to put as much evidence as humanly possible to concrete a position, what you don't do is, once you've introduced a higher tier, you don't keep jumping back to lower tiers, because even stretching into the timeline wise, like Metal Gear Solid 2, and I think he even did it into 4, he kept bringing up the boss, he kept bringing up the Cobras, and it's like, they stopped mattering by the time you got the portable.
Yeah,
God forbid 5. They stopped mattering.
The biggest problem with the video, I actually, because I brought it up a couple times, where it was just, you keep mentioning all these characters as like a point of reference, but by your own scaling chain, there are better points of reference in the very next game to use. Except for maybe like fucking Peace Walker, because you don't really fight anyone in Peace Walker.
No, you don't, and he never really The problem is as well because you brought this up as well because he doesn't have a summarized section at the very end of the video. What you're left with is at one point in the video he says that Solid Snake should be coming up to mountain level, scaling above the nukes. But then you walk that right the fuck back by saying, well, the guns and weapons are more advanced. Okay, are you going to argue that the nukes are more advanced? Okay, you can do that, but because you've highlighted that all the weapons are, that means you have conceded the point that Snake scales there by himself. He needs weapons to get there.
But even more importantly than that, if everything is so much more advanced than what it is in real life when it comes to weaponry and stuff, what is your point of reference for scaling any of the series then? Because if the weapons are more advanced, how do you assume the bullets are all at the same speed? How do you assume a lot of things at that point? Now, granted, obviously, maybe I'm being a bit of a cunt about it, so fair enough.
Oh no, you're not. You're not, because by that logic, all you'd be able to say is, okay, this is where the real life equivalent is. Metal Gear's version is vaguely above it,
Well,
and because of how the games work, and because he's scaling them to things like Peace Walker, he'd be unironically putting at least the explosive devices like RPGs and grenades,
you know what I just realized?
like at like fucking nuclear bomb levels, like stuff like the Tsar Bomber or even like something like the David Crockett. So he's putting the explosive weapons of Metal Gear anywhere from a vagueness of like city block all the way up to mountain.
Well, no, keep in mind that every explosive in Metal Gear would scale the mountain because MGS2 has you using a regular rocket launcher and assault rifle to take out the Metal Gears because I think Snake only uses a rifle in that fight. I still can't get over the fact they have Snake beating Vamp. That's fucking hilarious. But,
It's in the most cheesy way too, where it's a fly kick.
It's perfect. But, yeah, so then is every rocket launcher in Metal Gear, does that scale to a nuke now? Because they can destroy Metal Gears in direct fire? Like is that the position that every weapon is now just scalable to nuclear bombs? Now, granted, I understand that. I think they call it a fallacy of absurdity or something, where I'm arguing that it sounds absurd, therefore it can't be real. Is I guess what the position I'd be called out for on. And to some extent, sure, fair enough. When we're power scaling, we kind of ignore some of these more crucial issues. But the Metal Gear series is very grounded and grounded.
I'm not even arguing. I'm not even arguing from absurdity. If you want to say that the weapons scale there, all the weapons, I'm fine with. Okay, I'm happy to say that all the weapons scale there. Cool, but you don't get to say that Snake physically gets to scale there. That's not how that works.
Well, it's fucking if all the weapons scale there, then how does that narratively make sense with Metal Gear being the ultimate weapon if my fucking RPG 7 over here is a worthy fucking match for it, we tried so hard to make the anti-feats seem less impactful, but now the logic of the series and the narrative just kind of breaks a bit there, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, but what he shouldn't have done is when it comes to talking about the Metal Gears.
Say. Finish your thoughts, and then I gotta take off.
Yeah, okay. So, what he shouldn't have done is highlight that the Metal Gears have weaknesses.
Yeah, because that also raises so many red flags. But unfortunately, I gotta cut this post video short. So with that said, thank you guys for your time as always. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys on the next streamer video. Take care, everybody.